Hey everybody, welcome to We've Got Ward, a Doof Media podcast series where we expertly dissect and discuss Ward, Wildbow's return to the world of parahumans. My name is Matt Freeman, and I'm excited to talk this week about this week's chapter with my co-host, Scott Daly. Scott?
This is the weekly podcast where Matt and I eagerly dive into Wildbow's world of listening between words, Kakuna Matata, and alien-based death powers as we analyze and interpret this ongoing web serial. This week, the beginning of the end continues as we make our way further into Arc 20 Last, covering chapters 20.3 and 20.4. The team invades the Cauldron base trying to win it back from the Simurgh and stop her evil plans. Unominously, Victoria starts to feel really good about herself and her new powers, hatching from the fragile one and using her aura all over the place. Things are going well until Sveta gets all whiny about an ant lady slicey Vicky neck open thingy, and we go get her medical attention. She and Chris team up with Riley to execute Operation... Wait, this might actually just be a literal genocide? Matt, what are your thoughts on these two chapters?
Well, these were some heckin' fun chapters, Scott.
Heckin' fun.
They're like, it's been so long since we had honest to goodness Simurgh headfuckery chapters in you know, I forgot how fun I don't know what the right word is, but like this little subgenre is of like psychological horror and creepiness, like super atmospheric, creepy paranoia. And all this kind of thing, like this is, I don't know. I thought it was exceptionally well done in these two chapters, and there's a lot to talk about subtextually this week, which it even surprised me. Like my first read through, I was just like, wow, this is great, and you know it worked on me. And then going through it later, I was like, wow, there's a lot to this that I didn't even catch the first time. So I'm really excited to dig into it.
Yeah, I think I described it as kind of like a sneaky chapter. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some truth to that. Like there's a lot of, as you said, subtextual stuff going on that I think further reads illuminate. And I think it's one of those chapters that we could come out looking like real smart based on our subtextual reading, or like real dumb. I think there's going to be no middle ground.
Yeah. Stay tuned to find out which one. Sweet.
All right. Let's just get into it, huh?
Yeah. Quick announcements first. The fan art contest, the submission deadline is wrapped up. So the voting is now open for patrons.
Yeah. I think that voting is going to go on through next Monday. So we will be announcing the winners on next week's episode. So got some great submissions. I can't wait to show those off to everybody. It's really cool. The vote is actually very, very close. So if you are a patron and you have not voted yet, go do that. If you're not a patron, it's a great time to become one and make your voice heard, because this voting is going to come down to like 1 or 2 votes for the winner. I think it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'm not going to make any topical comments whatsoever about that. So next announcement, the All Packed Up 24-hour live stream hosted by Elliot and Ruben, the fantastic hosts of the Deep Impact show, just went fantastically. They raised over $5,000 for charity.
Yeah.
I was like impressed as hell with how that went. If you haven't checked it out, just go to twitch.tv/doofmedia and like you can still see the VOD. You can skip around. It was great, actually.
Yeah. And I think they have said they're going to release that in segments on our YouTube channel over the coming weeks. So you'll be able to see it that way if you don't want to like scan through the 24-hour VOD. But yeah, I am with you. I was blown away, not only just by Elliot and Ruben's organization, like they had ideas for every little time period and they were all fun and interesting and cool, but just the response for the community was incredible. Like I remember talking to them a couple weeks before and none of us knew how this was going to go. Like none of us had ever done anything like that. And this was their baby. They did it from start to end. Like we just showed up a couple times and we're just like, hey, we're here to help. But it was totally their thing. And none of us knew how it was going to go. And it went incredibly. I think there were no less than 50 people at any point during the entire 24-hour stream, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Some really great moments, an interview with Wildbow that I thought was fascinating. Like it was such a great time and a lot of money raised.
Yeah. So yeah, please check that out. I mean, I think it's probably pretty heavy on the pack spoilers, but it's super fun regardless.
Yeah.
Final announcement. March's Madness 2020 round 2 is live. Is that right, Scott? You're in charge of this.
Yeah. The voting for round 2 is live and it will be open until this Sunday at about 5 o'clock in the evening Central Time. So if you have not voted in round 2 yet, do that right now. And remember to leave comments. We, at the end of the show, are going to be going over the results of round 1. Not all of them, because there's a lot, but we're going to pick some of the most contentious and most surprising results from round 1 and read some of your comments. So tune in at the end of the show for that.
All right, let's get on into these chapters.
Let's do it.
20.3. And the heroes invade the Cauldron headquarters, this time in order to defend it. Victoria points out for us that this is basically a super important focal location for this story that the people have been fighting over back and forth for arcs and arcs now. And I think maybe this is as good a time as any to talk about the why of it. Like this gigantic mountain-sized structure has been a pivot point that this story has hinged on. Even back to the end of Worm, actually, it extends even beyond this story. So what can we say about its use as a setting?
Yeah, I mean, to me, in this book specifically, it just shows how much of this world is still revolving around the choices and the mistakes of those that came before it, right? We've said multiple times that Ward is a very different book than Worm. It is not just Worm 2, and that is undoubtedly true, but it is still a sequel. And our current opponents here at the end of this sequel are the Simurgh and Contessa, 2 characters from the previous story. So, this Worm is central to what Ward is, and Cauldron is central to that story, and thus has become central to this story. It's a group of people battling in a shrine to yesterday's mistakes, trying to figure out a new way forward, trying to figure out a new solution, a new answer, a permanent solution, a permanent answer to the problems they've had.
Yeah, it also kind of strikes me that this place is sort of supposed to be like the Castle Keep or the Panic Room for humanity.
Yeah,
that was sort of the intended use of it. And as the world has ended twice, humanity has retreated to this location twice, but that hasn't been a peaceful thing. It's become this nexus of conflict and disaster. And like this, one thing I love about Wildbow stories, we saw it in Worm, obviously, with the mall that they kept returning to, and it just got shittier and shittier as the story went on. A similar thing happening with this building, where it's got giant cavities carved in it from the fight against Teacher. It's got now all this internal damage from the Simurgh, presumably. The Gundam fights inside it. It's just getting torn to hell, and I don't know. I think it's fun. It kind of makes the drama of the story manifest in a physical way that I think is cool.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right there. It's a very cool setting. I mean, like, out of just the textual reason why we return here, it's just like a fun place.
Yeah, totally. So the team is fighting off the rabid Simurgh victims. Victoria, at this point, is referring to Kid Win as just Win in her narration. Apparently she decided this between the last chapter and this one.
Yeah, refuses to go with Man Win.
Yep. And she's also referring to her force field as her to other people at this point.
Yeah. And I think this force field beat, to me, is the start of a trend that will continue throughout both of these chapters and probably beyond them, of Victoria and her power just like generally making everyone around her super uncomfortable. Like in this situation, she's hauling this giant ass gun around these hallways, and then she just like casually floats down and snaps a knife in half. The text doesn't say if this was done like with the force field surrounding her real hand or with just like a force field hand or not, but based on Kidwin's reaction, we can kind of guess which it is, right? Well, and it's like, it's uncomfortable.
Yes, and I mean, I think the fact that she doesn't internally differentiate between the two is super telling and interesting, right? Based on Kid Win's reaction, he's like, okay, yeah, you just telekinetically, invisibly did that,
Right?
and I'm confused, and she's just like, oh yeah, I forgot that was in my hand. Basically, it's kind of the way she behaves in her mind. I know maybe this is belaboring the point, but like the story itself pointed out for us earlier that like getting your power to work better for you is just not something that really happens in this story. Like Taylor and Vista, both characters who were pretty powerful and talked about spending a lot of time and energy trying to like get more in alignment with their passenger, meditating, trying to figure out how to eke out the slightest little advantage in terms of control or range or what have you. And they never really got big movement on that front, right? Like neither Taylor nor Vista, they're strong, they're extremely capable and experienced, but like never did they have anything close to what Victoria has experienced in these last couple of arcs, I guess you'd say, where her power has shifted dramatically, and I don't really think we understand why,
Yeah, I mean, Victoria assumes it's just the acceptance and the relationship between her and her shard. I think we go back to the opening doors metaphor that we've touched multiple times in the story. But I think you're right that even when Vista and Taylor like did get like advances in their control and improved, it was like hard fought over many years type of training and behavior, and this is just like that, and it's sudden in a position where everyone else, every other cape in the world, just had like a power reset that kind of made theirs a little bit harder to control, a little bit less precise, a little different, right? Everyone has changed differently to be more violent and less control-y, and then Victoria comes in here with this power that's like totally different and seemingly completely under her control, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
like we understand it. I mean, we saw the moment of her in the crystal. We saw the moment of acceptance. We saw the moment where she first tested her force field and grew it out and then shrunk it. No one else saw that. And she's told them about it in a very loose term. And we're going to see Sveta like is just like losing shit in these chapters because she doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, just to highlight it, like it's weird, right? It's not for me. I don't accept the explanation that it was just like, oh, she had a moment of, she had a breakthrough. She had a mental breakthrough. And now, like, okay, that's great. But, she's, as far as we know, like the only parahuman who's ever like had a mental breakthrough and then her power becomes twice as good suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff with being in Shard World while it happens. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could just hand wave it away in that regard. But no, I think you're right.
I get that this is kind of a tangent at this point, but I wanted to talk about it up front because there's not really a more convenient place to talk about it. So
yeah, well, and I think it helps establish like why everyone else is kind of losing their mind when they're watching her do all these things. Like, it's easy to just forget, like we're so in line and in tune with Victoria that we just forget what this stuff looks like to people who haven't seen every single step of her journey. And exactly why they are like as shocked and disturbed as they are.
Right. Exactly. So, after this, there's this wonderful sequence, or maybe I think better to say a few sequences scattered throughout these two chapters where the text starts to focus on the sounds. And it did this a little bit last chapter too, actually, but once they're in the building, like people are broadcasting their panic and their freakouts on the PA system. You get this electronic screeching intermittently. You've got this refrain, which like modifies over time saying, it gets easier if you listen between the words. And of course, the Simurgh screaming the whole time, which at this point, I don't know, that's got its own special sound in my head after studying these books for so long.
Yeah.
And then she starts to hear more words that aren't really even there, sort of coming from the background, like sorry, wash, and which remind her of these terrible events in her past.
Yeah, I mean, I think all this basically confirms what you were saying last week, that the noises on the wind was just the Simurgh fuckery, and that continues through these chapters. I think it takes that concept and elevates it to, like, the creepiest level ever. I mean, our heroes are in this giant facility where their allies have turned against them, while creepy shit is playing over the intercom, and like we see every time one of this happens, like one of the heroes like reaches up and destroys one of those speakers just to make it stop, and it's like we're entering a horror game, and
Absolutely.
I do not like it.
Yes. The horror game comparison is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, Chris saves everybody from a likely ambush from a cyberdog.
Yeah, and of course, like we've been saying the last couple chapters, we're still in the mode of paying extra special attention to Chris. We know now that the idea is going to come to his mind any minute now, right? Like in the Simurgh chapter, what she said is minutes after the call with Bonesaw, he was going to get an idea and he was going to act in that idea. And so like we watch him save the day here, and it's like, does this mean everything's okay maybe? And I think that's just like wishful thinking, right? Of course it doesn't. Of course it does not. But like you're wishing that it did.
That's what's interesting is like everything Chris is doing on the surface appears to be like, hey, he's like finally acting as a functional and reliable member of the team.
Right.
Not for the first time, but like this is the only time he's done it without having a massive attitude. Like he's just sort of doing it. And obviously he's dealing with his own shit, and there's the Simurgh and everything, but like he doesn't behave in any specific ridiculous way in these two chapters. Which is interesting, and like it's such a positive development that we have to be skeptical of it, basically.
Yeah. Well, and it's I mean, I keep thinking about, like, I keep looking back to the question of, well, why did we decide to do it in the order we did it, right? Like, why did we preface what's going to happen with Chris in the Simurgh interlude before we did it, besides just the fact that it's fun? And I think because it allows us to look at him here and like read between the lines. Like if we didn't know about the Simurgh interlude and we were seeing Chris right here, I think you and I would probably be like, holy shit, man, look at our boy go. Like he's finally done it. He's turned the corner. Everything's going to be fine now. And the reality of the truth of that then would be crushing. But I think here we have an understanding. We have a basic seed planted where we know things are probably most likely going to turn real bad. That's even as he's working towards improvement.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes, I think that's exactly the headspace that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like throughout this part, and I think it's a good framing of the chapter as a whole, is that in this early moment when everyone's kind of freaks out, Victoria is desperately trying to keep everyone calm and keep everyone going. And this starts simply here with words of encouragement. It's like she's just saying, just endure, keep going, stay calm, stay level. And like this is how she's attempting to control people, or not control them, that's the wrong word, but attempting to inspire the troops and keep them moving forward. And it's fun seeing that it starts here in the beginning and then escalates throughout these two chapters to use of her aura to achieve these same things. Like it's like words alone no longer become sufficient, and she switches to real heavy aura usage by the end of these two chapters.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we've sort of been pointing out her hypocrisy regarding her aura throughout the story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably the peak of that we've seen.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So the lights go out, which is just perfect. Probably helps that I played Soma recently. We did a doofcast on that. Check it out. In terms of visualizing and imagining the soundscapes for this fucking nightmare, that was a resource my brain was drawing on.
Sure. I think mine was too, and that's why I said video game.
Yep. Yep. So the team uses like various methods to provide illumination, including Trophy Wife's use of cat eyes to give everyone night vision.
Mm-hmm. And it's really creepy. Like this whole part is super creepy and I really love it. But I want to pause on this for a moment because I want to talk about tone management, because I think there's a really interesting thing that happens in this section, because the lights go out. Everyone's kind of creeped out. Trophy Wife turns on her eyes and that lets everyone see. And there's this really funny moment in here where Withdrawal is like, do I want to know where those eyes come from? And Finale's like, nope, don't tell me. Woman couldn't pay her debt on time. I gave her the choice. No. Finale raised her voice, drowning out Trophy Wife. Stop. Gave me her cat. No. And it's like this really funny beat. But immediately after this beat is this moment where as soon as cat is said, Victoria's skin crawls, and the thought was involuntary. I'm made of strays and escaped pets and rodents and bugs. My skin crawled more. And so in this scene, we go from creepy, the lights turn out, to funny, to right back to creepy again. And normally in that kind of thing, I'd worry about a tonal whiplash that kind of loses the reader here. But here, I think it really works. And I think it works because a certain level of like nervous humor actually helps like very temporarily release, but then subsequently actually increase tension. And we have this moment where like the lights go out and everything's spooky, and finale provides us with this tension relief. And then the second we feel that relief, we're pulled back into Victoria's point of view. Cats. She's made out of cats. And we realize that humor actually comes from like a disturbing moment. Like it's funny. It is funny, finale's reaction to it. But it is disturbing. And so like you're just like, there's a certain amount of whiplash there, but I think that it keeps things steady. You know what I mean? It's
darkly funny. It's not breaking the tone funny. It's funny within the dark tone. And also,
right.
It's not two characters quipping in a way that demonstrates that they're not actually afraid and this is all funny and it's okay to the kids in the audience. It's finale is not having a good time. Victoria doesn't think this is funny. At most, maybe Trophy Wife thinks this is funny, but in a way that's like sick. So you're not like it's. I mean, I like the MCU movies a lot, but I think it's often a fair criticism that they can undercut the tone and the stake and the sense of there being any gravity by having the characters like quip to each other, because that is in my opinion, the wrong way to do humor in those situations where it's just like, oh, okay, the characters don't actually think this is serious and dangerous. Well, then it must not be. That's not what's happening here, obviously. So
no, yeah. I mean, I don't fully agree with that assessment of the MCU, but that's a whole different conversation. But
it is.
I am with you 100% on this. I think that it is funny. Like this part is funny, but it's funny in like you feel immediately bad about laughing kind of way.
Yeah.
And I think by pulling you immediately back into Vicky's POV and immediately back to a thing that she hasn't thought about for a while. Like she hasn't thought about the I'm made of cats and rodents and thing for a little bit, and it kind of primes us for the specific kind of head fuckery that the Simurgh is going to be doing, while also giving you just a little microsecond of tension relief, and then kind of making you feel bad for it a little bit after.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's what you want in this kind of creepy horror chapter.
Yeah, totally. So before we move on here, Matt, I just want to do some good old fashioned Scott and Matt read way too much into things section.
Okay.
Because as you mentioned before, audio is coming over the speakers and it's saying random creepy things. And in this part of the chapter, one of those random creepy things is get between the words. And this is actually, this specific quote is what makes Damsel destroy the speaker that leads into the next part where Torso hears them and comes up to them. But anyway, it goes back to that earlier quote that you mentioned. It gets easier if you listen between the words. Now, this just seems like creepy nonsense, which it very much is. But what is it actually saying? Listen between the words. What does that mean? Well, that's literally what subtext is, right? Like, it's not the literal meaning of the words, but the meaning underneath or between them.
Yeah.
This book is literally inviting us and demanding us to look at the subtext present in these chapters. There are things going on, yes, but there are things going on between all the things. And that is true to what the Simurgh is doing here, right? Everything has a meaning behind the meaning. There's a reason things are playing out in the order they are playing out in. There's a reason that Victoria is reminded of cats and what it specifically does to her. There's a reason to all this. And here's the book almost like literally telling you, hey, read between the lines.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to have time to go through every single character who's in these scenes and talk about like what is happening behind the curtain potentially, or what we're supposed to infer based on various clues. But I think we're going to try to pick out as many moments as we can where they seem clear. But yeah, like that's definitely. I mean, just definitely, you can walk into this knowing that it's not just Victoria who is hearing these things and feeling these feelings. Everybody has their own little privately programmed horror show. And the text says this outright too. Like, hey,
Right.
everybody's going through this. So
Yeah, I mean, one of the flip side of this is that the Simurgh is telling people to do that, so they read subtext that isn't there, right? So like, it's like, reader, be thinking about the subtext here. Characters, yeah, there's definitely subtext to that. They definitely mean something else there. It works on both those levels, I think.
that's really fascinating because presumably Simurgh wanted these people, and Victoria specifically, to hear that message, meaning that it's like, yes, Victoria, engage your rational analytical faculties.
Right.
You can totally handle this. You've got this. You have all the tools necessary to fight the Simurgh walking into this battle. You should be very confident in yourself.
Yep.
That's exactly the headspace that I want you in for the next thing that I have planned for you.
Right. And I mean, we see in 20.4 specifically that how the Simurgh is fucking with the group's understanding of each other. Like we see through the how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10 thing, people are misremembering, quote unquote, differently.
Yes, absolutely.
It's great. I love it. I love it so much. There's so much going on here. Like so much. There's like 3 levels. And what you said about how like we don't have time to go through every character who there might be multiple things going on. I think you're right. And I'm not even confident in saying that like every single character in the scene has like a textual meaning and a subtextual meaning of what's going on here, but it doesn't matter because it feels like they do.
Well, and also like Damsel, for example, I didn't notice anything in particular that makes me think like, oh, this was a reference to this thing that happened in Damsel's past. But like, you don't need that. You know what her issues are already.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be told again. It's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. Speaking of Damsel, the next beat is that she drew a lot of attention when she blew away that speaker, which was probably intended. And some of that attention turns out to be just Torso catching up, who then gets shot in the groin by Man Win for his trouble.
Yeah. And in our little read between the words thing, right? Like it's Windman that does it. And we remember this is the kid with confidence issues who continually felt like the goofy screw up, right? Like he couldn't do anything right. None of his stuff ever worked right. He just messed up and he was a liability on his team. And what does he do here? He does an oopsies. And I think it's great because we see here that Christopher is like super apologetic for a lot more of the chapter. Like he keeps apologizing to Torso. He feels really, really bad about it. And I'm just like, well done, Simurgh. Well done.
Yeah. Didn't he wasn't friendly fire with his little stunner bolts literally the thing that he did in the skirmish against the Travelers that he was then really messed up about?
I think so. I don't remember that specifically, but I do remember an instance of friendly fire getting him in trouble.
I'm pretty he either shot an ally or he shot himself because Trickster was fucking him around.
Yeah.
And that just like really bothered him because he's like got him such a fuck up, and it's the same basic thing here. So
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why these chapters are so fun, Matt.
Yep.
There's so much going on.
I love it. All these like callbacks that are filtered through. So the team, they fight the people who show up. The team discusses the state of mind that everyone's in, and Victoria has this little outburst. Fuck you, Simurgh. The statement was marked by others looking at me. Oh, I'd said that out loud. Do we need to worry? Clucker asked. Addendum to that thought, I said. Fuck her, and no, it's not working like she wants it to. She's poking at obvious weak spots I've been dealing with for years. I can take it.
Man, I love this so much.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd said that out loud is just perfect. But the first time I read through this, and maybe you have the same memory, but the first time I read through this, I was like, fuck yeah, Matt. I was like, look at Victoria resisting all the shit the Simurgh is throwing at her. It's awesome. Like, we talked about this a little bit last week. We talked about this idea that Victoria has just had this great breakthrough, this love and acceptance. And what narratives normally do is that when a character has this moment, they usually test that moment. It usually the character is thrown into conflict where that change is tested. And on the surface, that seems like what this is doing, right? She's made this breakthrough. She's came to this new point, and then all the old tricks are going to be thrown at her to see if new version of Victoria can resist all these old tricks. And at first you're like, fuck yeah, look, she's doing it. She's passing the test. It's awesome. But then you go finish the chapters and you go back and read this again. And I'm like, oh no. Like, this could definitely be a trap of overconfidence here. Like, where the Simurgh is literally taking the progress that Victoria has made, the newfound love and acceptance, and using these very things against her. Like, I mean, if you look at this, like, fuck her, no, it's not working like she wants it to. And I'm like, it's not?
She's a precog.
Like, yeah. Like, she's poking at obvious weak spots. Obvious weak spots. If the weak spots are so obvious, does that sound like something the Simurgh would do? No.
Yeah, I mean, I admit, when I read it through the first time, I was absolutely like, yeah, this is a fantastic victory lap for Victoria. I'm so glad that she gets to just dominate. And then, doing the notes, I was like, oh no, it's actually complicated, Scott.
Yep.
It's complicated again. Why does Wildbow do this?
Yeah, why does he write complicated conflict? Ugh,
yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah. So they all give numbers on how they're doing, and Victoria says she's a 7. And most people put themselves down as like mid-range numbers in the 5 to 7 range, I guess. Byron puts himself at a 4, which is, I think, the lowest. Cryptid is an 8 or a 9. He's just doing fantastic. Torso said he would be a 10 if not for the crotch shot. So wow, good for him.
God, I love Torso.
Yeah.
His skull's so thick, the mind whammy doesn't work on him.
It's I wonder. I mean, I wonder if there's more to Torso beyond being comic relief, because it is very fun. But I'm like, really? He's just shrugging off the Simurgh? I don't know. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to know that. just the nature of his character, but I don't know. I don't think there needs to be more to him. I think it works.
Torso interlude is next, of course. Of course.
Yeah, I'm going to rue the day I said that.
Yeah.
So, like we said earlier, Wildbow has kind of, I think, been giving us hints at the fucky Simurgh nature of things going on. But I love that this element is introduced here. We lay it down in numbers, and then in the next chapter, he can take these numbers and distort them and like draw very clear, like obvious signs to how things are being distorted, right? Because if you lay it down in a factual number, like Victoria here says she's a 7. Next chapter, someone's going to say, I thought you said you were a 6. And immediately your brain goes, wait, that's not right.
Yeah.
And then it'll happen again. Didn't you just say you were a 9?
Right.
No, she didn't. She didn't say that. It's just a great way to take what's being done all throughout these chapters and give it like an anchor of easily digestible, like obvious changes that like hint you towards the greater screwiness that's happening.
Yeah. And how much it's working too.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
if everybody is making these mistakes, then clearly it's working on them.
Right.
The fun the medium-sized brain interpretation is that everybody is misremembering. The galaxy brain interpretation is that Victoria's not actually saying what she thinks she's saying.
Oh God, yeah. I don't even know what that would mean.
I don't either. It's fun to think about though.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one thing that's happening in the background, we're watching everybody deteriorate gradually over the course of these chapters. We get to guess what's eating at them. Sveta sort of takes like a leadership role in this chapter.
Yeah.
And that's because she knows her way around the base better than the others, which is a bad thing, actually, because of the context of that. She takes an even more firm leadership role when they decide that Victoria might be compromised in the next chapter. And after that happens, then she becomes increasingly short and direct and angry and really kind of not like herself.
Yeah, I mean, I love that we don't have to pay specific attention to it or draw that specific attention to it outside of like these very cursory, like her kind of slotting herself in attention, her saying, I know the way, I'll take control. But I think you're absolutely right that this has got to be extremely traumatic for her just generally. Like, not only is she storming this base again, she's storming this base with a bunch of teammates that are getting like increasingly more injured. I mean, like, she's been here before, but this is a specific way in which she's coming back into Cauldron headquarters that is very close to her and the rest of her team did back at the end of Worm. And so, yeah, I mean, there's got to be a lot of like, and I'm sure like in if we were in Sveta's head during this whole thing, I'm sure the Simurgh is, instead of saying things that remind Victoria of her time in the hospital, or that she's made out of cats or things like that. In Sveta's mind, it's things that remind her of what Cauldron did to her and of what happened here. This becoming like the division point of her with the rest of her kind. It
kind of makes me want to like dig. I didn't have a chance to do this, and I didn't notice anything on my 2 read-throughs, but like I was wondering if there's anything that could be construed as like an egg reference or a weld reference or something that would be really pointed. I didn't see anything, but
I didn't see anything like that. I mean, maybe certainly. I certainly will never say that I am at close to confident that I picked up on every small, tiny, wonderful thing these chapters are doing. Definitely not.
Yeah, me too. So the team finally reaches a concentration of heroes, including Defiant and Gilpatrick. Victoria touches base with Gilpatrick, and we learn that his power is apparently a thinker power that lets him see the lies people tell themselves as a physical manifestation. And other than that, we don't get a lot from him other than like this great emotional moment where he's just really happy to see her and sort of like really deeply moved and emotional and stuff. There's also this line where she says, "We'll get through it," I told him, and then thinks to herself, "Or die trying." And I immediately thought, yes, that's what killing you means.
I saw you write this in the script and I didn't remember where it's from. Where is it from?
It's Infinity War.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay.
It's Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I love this power. It's like perfect shard fuckery, right? Like when you think about his past interactions and think about what was going on in the dream room, of course he gets this power to suss out the lies people are telling themselves. But of course, in classic shard form, it can't just present as a normal thing. It has to be like he sees a physical manifestation of that lie. It's awful.
Yeah. And of course, obvious how that ties into his trigger, quote unquote trigger event, the terrible situation with his with the kid who he was trying to help.
It's perfect. I love it. I can't I can't help but wonder if it's on right now. I mean, he specifically says when he first got it, it's like an always on thing and it takes effort to turn it off, which had to have been a terrifying experience. But like, what is he seeing when he looks at Victoria as she's talking to him? Like, what lies is Victoria telling to herself here? Like, we don't get to see, like, even the "we'll get through it." Is that a lie that Victoria is telling herself? Like, the "or die trying" bit maybe tends to, like, hint that there's some amount of untruth there. So, like, is he seeing a physical manifestation of that standing right next to Victoria? Or I think it's layered on top of, right?
Yeah, like somehow in their features. I mean, he didn't explain it clearly, but
yeah.
I do have this terrible feeling that like we're gonna see this power in use. Like we'll see Gilpatrick again, and it's gonna be some terrible thing. Like I just have this feeling like this story, the direction of the rest of the story is not gonna be. And then now that Victoria has had her big breakthrough, she just kicks everybody's ass for the entire rest of the story, and it's totally a victory lap and high fives all around, happy ending.
No, not with the Simurgh here.
I mean, I want it to be, sure. But you know,
yeah, no, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if any of the I feel like this is either just like a cool like. People were wondering what Gilpatrick's power is going to be, or it's like it's laying a seed for something that's going to pay off interesting later. I don't know.
I guess it could be just that. Yeah. We'll see. So Victoria, in this conversation or after this conversation with him, acknowledges that she is hauling around 12 tons of gun, which is something that she's thought about before.
Yeah.
But the connecting thought here isn't just about that, because we have kind of talked about that before. It's this next line where she says, "The gun wasn't even the fucking irony here. 12 tons of gun was nothing compared to the weight of the countless lives I was preparing to take." I looked over at Chris.
Yeah, so we're back to this again, Matt, and I still don't know what genocide actually means here, but lines like this certainly mean to make it think that like it's just genocide.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit today where we tried to like war game out all these alternative interpretations where we were like, yes, so like you can interpret genocide as like maybe there's just not going to be capes anymore, or like maybe they're just not going to, like maybe all the humans are going to become parahuman, and like nothing fit, and we're just like maybe she's just literally going to like do what it kind of seems like she's saying. I guess one of the reasons why other than it being horrifying, but one of the reasons why I kind of struggle with that interpretation is like, Scott, if I were to be like, Scott, you're going to need, in the next hour, you're going to need to kill, your mom, your cousin, your dad, all of your close friends, most of the people you know, really, you're going to have to kill them. And yourself. Do you think that you would be thinking more about that fact?
Yes. Yes.
So
1,000,000%.
So that's in a nutshell why I'm like trying to think my way around this. It's possible that like it's so horrifying to her that she's just flinching away from the thought. That's also
possible,
a possibility. Yeah. But I'm really struggling to understand exactly what the deal is here.
Right, and I mean, like I think we talked about like. I mean, like the line here, I think that the wording here is very specific. Like, it's not like this is nothing compared to the weight of the countless lives that would be sacrificed, or nothing compared to the countless lives that would be lost. This 12 tons of gun was nothing compared to the weight of the countless lives I was preparing to take, right? Like Victoria takes ownership here. She takes ownership of this. The lives I was preparing to take. It's such a powerful phrasing. And again, like that certainly seems setting it up for exactly what we think the word genocide means.
Yes.
But I remain utterly confused. Like, I don't know who knows about this plan. Like I still am not like clear. Like, does Breakthrough know about it? Are they cool with it? Like, I feel like someone like Sveta would be like, "Hey, what?
What? Excuse what?" Yeah. I mean, follow-up question: if after putting you in that situation, I were to be like, Scott, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing? Would you say 8?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great, buddy. I'm doing great. Yeah, I mean, like, we did this really interesting thing where the only time she said genocide, the only people that were around her were Riley on the phone and Chris in front of her, right? So the rest of her team were not around her when she said genocide. I don't know. I am utterly confused. So
yeah,
and I don't have anything else to say about it.
I'm confused in sort of an exciting way where I'm I can't wait to see how this resolves.
Right, because like that is my, like, when I'm confused about something, I'm like, oh, the explanation of this is going to be fascinating, and I think that is true. But I sit here and look at a sentence like this, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah. And I mean, the funny thing is, this is one of the only times it's mentioned in these chapters. And so this is why we're talking about it so much here. Yeah.
I mean, Sarah was in on that conversation.
Right.
Right? She's cool with it.
She's got a daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I guess you could make the argument if Victoria's plan is the literal after we've lost plan, right? Like it is, the game is over. Everyone's going home already, and then we're going to trigger the final plan. So in the scheme of what are we going to do and what are people going to be concerned about, like the after you've already lost plan might just not be something that people get that up in arms about, because you've already lost.
Right. Like this, I guess dying would be better than being the Simurgh's eternal like slave subject.
Sure.
I'd still not be thrilled about that. Still.
Yeah, I mean, I look. I mean, I don't think that is going to just be literally what she's planning. Like, I think it's going to be more complicated than that. From a thematic reason, from a narrative reason, and just from like, I just don't think that's where the book is going to go. But it's certainly thrown me for a loop. Yeah, and maybe that's what it's designed to do. Like, we're supposed to be looking at this quote right here and being like, huh.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think we're supposed to be. I think we're supposed to be not sure what exactly the plan is, for sure.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Okay. So as they are kind of in this big room with all of the other heroes and, about to move out, Simurgh dives down into the midst of everyone, just blasting them with her psychic attack and wailing on everyone with, telekinetic projectiles and hitting Victoria with this seductive sense of what it might have felt like if certain people had said the right things at the right times instead of what actually happened. But Victoria has spent the whole story practicing for this. And so she is able to push back and use her aura in return, which is a psychic attack of her own, basically.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to the conversation we were having a little bit earlier with Victoria being tested. Because what I definitely don't want to do here, what I'm worried we did in that initial conversation, is minimized Victoria's accomplishment in our saying that this is all a Simurgh plan. So I want to word this very carefully. So there's this wonderful part here where she hears, "I never had a trigger event." Dean's voice. "I had to abandon you for my own health." Jessica's. "I'm sorry. I was selfish. It wasn't your fault." And wonderfully, for some reason, we don't get an origin point of that last quote, which is just, mwah, I love it. Yeah. But anyway, regardless of whether this is a Simurgh plot to give Victoria confidence or not, for Victoria to get hit with psychological manipulation to this level and not only survive it without spiraling out, but to push back against it and counter it with her own aura scream of "fuck you" that inspires her troops forward, is a staggering accomplishment for the character that we saw in arc 1 of the story. Like regardless of whether this is the Simurgh using Victoria's progress against her, does not diminish the fact that she's made progress. This is everything she's been working toward all book, and it is absolutely wonderful. It's all wonderful. This "fuck you" I willed, I pushed again, trying to feed courage and outrage to the crowd on a level that would serve the people who needed it. I'm not who I was when Ophion got me. I'm changed. I think that is such a powerful, powerful moment. And regardless of the fuckery going on beneath it, it's super awesome.
Yes. This is one of those occasions where I'm like, I think if I wasn't doing this deep reading podcast thing, I would just take this fully at face value and just be like, this is great. We know the Simurgh hasn't got a perfect beat on everyone. The Simurgh is basically trying to hack into people. And that means that she doesn't necessarily have the right read on them. Maybe she literally just has an old data on Victoria. And so she literally is just button mashing and hitting all these obvious buttons that Victoria has dealt with. And that's all this is. I would love it if that were the case. If it were just no, actually, she's just not working on Victoria. Victoria, her breakthrough has literally, enabled her to fight back against the Simurgh in a very powerful and self-affirming way. That would be awesome. Because we do this thing that we always do, where we have to take everything from 5 degrees of separation, 8-degree chess, whatever. I have to second guess that, but I kind of want that to be what's actually happening.
Yeah. I mean, I do and I don't. I want that to be for my love of the characters. I don't want that to be for my enjoyment of the book, because I don't know, that would I feel like that would be a less complex and satisfying ending than just nope, turns out none of it worked, actually. She's fine. And the concept of a victory lap, I don't think is one that I think really necessarily works in this book. I think she's going to be struggling right up until the end. And I think there's more struggle to be had here. So, I'm torn on it. I both want it and not want it to be true. And the more I studied these chapters, the more I read them, the more I kind of convinced myself that no, there's definitely something else going on here. I mean, we kind of see her deteriorate in the next chapter. Even the coping mechanisms that were working great kind of start to break down, because that's literally what the Simurgh does. The longer you're within her range, the worse it gets.
Yeah. I mean, I guess all I can say to all that is I'm really quite open-minded at this point. If you want to tell me, hey, Matt, I disagree, I'm going to be forced to say that's impossible, because I don't really have a position. Any direction this goes from here, I think could be extremely interesting. and I'm down for it. I definitely want to see Victoria succeed and win and win the day and be the hero here.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, it's almost too good for me to just accept that that's what we're seeing, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think, to rephrase, like, I don't think what's being done here is actually, like, Victoria is going to be secretly whammied into being the enemy of everyone. Like, I don't think we're going to go that far. I don't think this is that kind of story. But I also don't think it's going to be quite as simple as, no, Victoria's just resisting it. We're good.
Yeah. I think you're right. Somewhere in the middle, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I just fucking love this bit though, where the Simurgh just kind of sits there silently and nobody can hit her because she set up all of the dominoes such that every attack just foils itself before it can land. And like it seems like from Victoria's perspective, who admittedly she's our point of view, but it seems like she's like the only one who's able to employ her formidable skills of psychological jujitsu to remain effective here as she flies around and saves multiple people while steadily firing at Z's, or more correctly, while Fragile One steadily fires at Z's, because we shortly after realize that the force field is now independent of her.
Yeah, holy shit. And we'll talk about that in a sec. But
yeah,
I mean, this whole part, like, if we're talking about victory lap, right? This is awesome. This is a moment that Victoria has 100% earned, and it is just as badass as it should be. She's flying around, she's saving people, she saves like, I don't know how many people, like at least like 4 people, I think, that she's like snatching people out, and probably more than that. She's just being awesome. And I don't think that my worry about Simurgh nonsense takes away from the amazingness of this moment. It is undoubtedly cool. And what I love about this, what Wildbow has done here, is there's a potential for both those things to be true simultaneously. Like we could learn tomorrow that we are 100% right that this success that Victoria is having here is a part of a plot to make her feel a little bit overconfident, and then she oopsies somewhere. I don't think that would take away from the success of this moment, though.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it, actually. Like, this is an awesome moment, almost independent of what happens later.
Yep.
I like that framing. Cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of the force field, on a reread, it was especially clear that there is this connection being made between the cocoon, the idea of a cocoon, the concept of a cocoon, and her bursting forth from the ribcage of the cocoon that Amy had made for her, and of course the cocoon that is Fragile One, which Victoria has now emerged from as a glorious butterfly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's kind of showing how the relationship between Victoria and Fragile One is working in tandem, because Victoria latches onto this cocoon imagery. Like, the Simurgh hits her with what is supposed to be an attack psychologically on her, this cocoon imagery. And instead of focusing on the horror of it, she instead shifts that focus to what came out of it. Like, what was hatched from this terrible cocoon? Well, it was me, Victoria, this wonderful, incredible, heroic person. That's me. And she latches onto that idea and then uses that in communication with her shard to do some crazy cool new thing.
Yeah, it's really great. I'll talk more about that in a minute. I'll hold off on that.
I mean, I just love how the book reveals it, though. Like, I love like the way it's done is there's this moment where she says, the Fragile One fired the gun. And you're like, that's weird. Normally, like, she just says, I did it. I fired the gun. And we're like, okay, whatever. And then Sveta asks for help, and she's like, okay, but I don't have my force field. And you're just like, what? Yeah. Like, it's really this wonderfully constructed moment where it's like almost intentionally confusing for just a beat, when you're just like, just intentionally confused for just a couple seconds. And then it's like, oh,
yeah,
fuck.
It's kind of gratifying because Sveta just like boggles at her, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, in the middle of this fight, she's just like, I don't even know what that means. But yeah, no, it's great.
Well, like, how off-putting would this be for the perspective of somebody else?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What?
Absolutely. I mean, okay, so I want to move on to this point, and then I want to say the thing that I was going to say. So Victoria uses her aura now, not just to broadcast that fuck you, but now to broadcast like encouragement and solidarity.
Sure.
And I think it's been a while since we talked about this, but I do see this pattern between Goddess and the Simurgh and Victoria, where they have basically a psychic power, like a mental power. Victoria's can also now be compared very closely with Heartbreakers, actually.
Sure.
If we're comparing people's powers.
Yeah.
And trying to find nefarious connotations. She now has something not nearly as strong, but very similar to what Heartbreaker can do. And of course, telekinesis is the other standout thing that Goddess and Simurgh can do. And having a force field that you can separate from your body and then just kind of launch to do things for you is basically telekinesis. In fact, this is a very flexible and powerful form of telekinesis that Victoria has now. Yeah. So her powers have just gotten that much closer to being, to being similar to both Goddess and the Simurgh. I think on the show we pointed out the similarities before, but it just seems to be even more so now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the text is wanting to draw those Simurgh parallels for sure. Like, I think they're two, like, just the idea that like they meet on the battlefield, like the ceiling drops out and the Simurgh is there, and the first thing that happens, the Simurgh screams out psychological warfare, and Victoria's response is to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like to reverse it on her. Like, we are being made to connect these dots. And like, yeah, I mean, you can be as pessimistic as we want to be with this, is like, like anytime we're drawing connection between characters and we're drawing these Victoria connections to some of the worst, scariest characters, it's like, oh, fuck. But you could also just be like, hey, this is like the good version of all this stuff. But I do think it is interesting the ways in which we see Victoria's aura usage, like from this moment on, just like ramp up considerably. Like there was a while there where she just wasn't using it, like, at all. Like, she just didn't use it for the longest time. You remember how annoyed we were at like how did her aura change? What does it mean? And it's just like chapter after chapter, it's not being used. And then all of a sudden, like here in these two chapters, it's like bam, 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 bam. Like, she's just constantly. And it's not just because she's fighting enemies that it works against. Because she's not just using it on her enemies. She's using it on her team as well.
Yeah.
And it's because she's unlocked this way to channel certain emotions through it. And then it's just like, I'm just using it. Like, just using it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely do want to read a little bit of, I mean, I'm a bit skeptical of the way she uses it on her own team, to be honest. That makes me concerned. It absolutely does. It reminds me of things that we're supposed to find to be negative, like Heartbreaker is a huge kind of figure lurking in the background of the story. And now she's using it to sort of push people around in a way that reminds me of him. And it's worrying to me. So
I agree. I'm a little worried. I mean, I think that the cool thing about it is it sets up situations where you're like, the first time she uses it, the fuck you aura, you're just like, you're on board, right?
Yeah.
And then the encouragement aura, you're like, yeah. And then it just like, especially in the next chapter, it just keeps going to a place where you're like,
yeah.
Like, with each more use, you're like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know about that particular one there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was really awesome when Sveta and Clockblocker teamed up, though. That was totally sweet. Yeah,
it's really cool. Like, this basic, like, catch her in a tentacle web thing is really, really awesome. I wonder how much it messed up Sveta, though. Like to go back to our reading between the words thing, like, she basically has to unfold her entire body. Like, she unfolds her middle section to create a hole so rubble, like, doesn't pierce her. It just goes through her. And then, like, krakens onto the Simurgh. And she's here in this place with rubble falling down around her, latching onto a foe and freezing them in place. Like, that's just so very close to the last time she was here fighting, trying to invade this place. And I can't help but read into that.
It even kind of reminds me of when she killed Dr. Mother, although, I mean, like,
totally different, but
also not.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, I would love to, that's yet another moment where I would love to just fist bump and move on. But I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, this kind of feels like a victory, or at least it does until you write a 20-page script about the chapters. And then they chase the Simurgh off, And then Dragon returns and Victoria is ordered upstairs to find Dinah.
Which is exciting, at least for me it was, because I've been curious about Dinah for a while now, and the story has told us we're going to maybe get there eventually and get some answers, so I'm really excited about that. But first we got to go to the lab for Operation Genocide.
Operation Genocide.
Like legit genocide.
Operation Codename Genocide, which is actually something else completely. Yeah. And the chapter ends with her thinking to herself, as it began, younger me, so it continues. A cut on the head, a weird feeling of pride, and a bit of twisted hope. Yeah, so another beat of her talking to her younger self, which has been a persistent thing throughout this arc.
Yeah. To the point where, like, you start to wonder, we start to do that Simurgh thing, right? Or like, is this what the Simurgh wants you to do? Like, we didn't mention it, but the cut on her forehead is caused by when Clockblocker's power wears off, there's like a bunch of debris that gets flung out as the Simurgh gets loose again. And the only thing that hits Victoria is just one little tiny bit of debris that just cuts her forehead open a little bit. And then at the end of this chapter, she references back to a moment. Actually, I had to do some digging, and thank you, Kayakin, again, for finding the exact spot for me, because I remembered this happening, but could never have found it. Back in all the way in Arc 1, Chapter 6, there's a moment where Victoria, I think she's getting hit with a snag emotion whammy, and she's thinking about a memory of like one of the first times she went out as a superhero and like got a cut on her head, and her mom was stitching it up, and her mom was like so super proud of her. She's proud of herself. Her mom's proud of her. It's like the first superhero injury. So it's like all the way back to the very beginning of her journey. And this cut on her forehead makes her recall that, a weird feeling of pride and a bit of twisted hope. And it's one of those like pool type things where like balls, like the cue ball striking and like the ripple chain of events. You can definitely see some Simurghiness in it. And it's a really cool callback. I like it. Like it is very much doing work to make this whole thing feel like everything's coming full circle, but it also scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, I think that's a great pull. I didn't actually make that connection because I forgot about the injury being to her forehead specifically. I mean, she does sort of make this connection for us, but like, pointing out that it goes back to this moment with her mom. That's good. It's good to think about, and it makes me worried. So
yeah, I mean, like we said, the arc started with this moment of her talking to her younger self, and we went through that in chapter 1, and now here in chapter 3 we brought that back. So that is going to be a recurring beat, and so I think we need to pay extra special attention to whenever those moments happen, because they're doing something. Yeah,
I think so. All right, moving on into 20.4. And the battlefield continues to be a special kind of hell. And very quickly in this chapter, we get from Sveta, "If anything's making me feel like I'm going crazy," Sveta remarked, "it's you, Victoria."
Yeah.
Which is especially a slap in the face. I think if you read the first chapter without thinking too hard about it and just took it at face value, because you're like, what?
Right. And I think to me, that feels like what it's designed. Like, if you look at the last chapter, Victoria would be like, that went fucking great.
Yeah.
Like, we beat back the Simurgh. We did exactly what we had to do there. Like, she's saying all throughout the early part of that chapter, all we have to do is just beat her back, delay her, force her so she has to back off instead of going for her next thing. Things are going fucking great. I resisted it. We're beating it back. I'm feeling good. I'm a 7 on the 7 out of 10. Everything's going great. None of my people got that hurt. It's all going good. And then Sveta's like, actually, you are making me feel like I'm going more crazy than the Simurgh is making me feel, which is like, what?
Uh-huh.
And I think that's why, like, a lot of these opinions and what we're talking about on how we felt about 12.3 or 20.3 rather, are when we went back and read it after the bomb that was this chapter was dropped on us, when the chapter does work to kind of recontextualize a lot of what that was.
I think you're right. I'm going to be honest. I think like emotionally speaking, one of the more important things that happened this week was somebody put out this really great piece of fan art depicting a scene from the end of this chapter where you basically got Chris and Byron and Victoria and Victoria is like, she looks like a bloody, deranged, ragged, crazy person. And I'm like, oh, she looks like this. This is exactly like her costume's all torn up. She's bleeding everywhere.
She's bleeding so much.
Yeah.
She's bleeding so much.
And I was just like, okay, now if I picture that person doing all of these things, it's a bit different, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so we see here after Sveta kind of like confronts her, she asks 1 to 10 again, and Victoria says 8. And Byron's like, that's worrying. 8 is good. I feel okay. Better than okay. Didn't you say 6 earlier? Which is lovely because this is doing double duty, right? Because not only do we get this little hint that something weird is going on here, because no, she did not say 6 earlier. She said 7. But also, like, the whole thing with the Simurgh is the longer you're exposed to her, the better she gets at fucking your world up.
Yeah.
And now at the end of this big encounter, Victoria is like, I'm doing better than I did last time. And that's just like, oh no.
I mean, you have to wonder what color she is right now on the little Defiant scanner.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's fascinating. Like, it's so troubling. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think the text introduces this idea of like, there's multiple levels on which you can be operating, right? Like, a little bit later, it's like, well, like, in some regards, I'm a 10, but in other regards, I'm like a 4.
Right.
And like, obviously, like, this whole scale is a simplified, like, just quick, how are you doing thing. It's like oversimplified and not perfect, but still, like, I completely understand her team hearing 8 and being like, what?
Yeah, totally.
And that's all that it needs to do, right? It's not necessarily like eventually Wildbow is going to reveal what's going on here, like going to reveal if this was a get Victoria overconfident plot or not.
Right.
But all we need to know in the moment is we need to understand why her team would be feeling this way, and I think this achieves that.
I think it does, yeah. For a while, I was doing one of those apps where you like track your different emotional states with different numbers, and it was super depressing because you're just always conscious of the fact that you're like mildly dissatisfied with everything all the time. And I eventually stopped using it because I was like, I don't like to be reminded that I could be doing better. I'm doing fine. Get rid of these fucking numbers, and then I was happy again.
Yeah.
The end. Yes, I love all of this. And this is a great time for a horror thing to happen again, which is blood play emerges in the darkness super creepily and attacks. But Victoria is, of course, super effective with her new invisible, ultra strong force field, which she just kind of like launches at her to grab her. Of course, this deranged cape can actually shrink and uses this ability to fly around and laser Byron's wrist and Victoria's neck before she can eventually be recaptured, at which point Victoria uses some like aura magic on her to first try out like a wake up pulse and a breakthrough pulse, which sort of work, I guess.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, this character, Matt. Holy shit! It's like, what if Ant-Man, but like scary lasers that hurt all my best friends. And of course, Bloodplay is screaming the entire time. Lots and lots of screaming.
Surprisingly loud screaming. Yes.
Yeah. If there's a motif that extends throughout this arc, it's just screams.
Yes.
But I love how the text is written when she uses her aura here. She says, I could choose what emotions I put out there now, but it wasn't as simple as choosing from a tidy little list, just the opposite. I dug into memories and the rawest, deepest feelings I had. A moment of clarity midway through therapy at the hospital. Moments, my thoughts wandering at night, where I jolted awake with a realization. The feeling after I'd smeared my mother against a wall and realizing it was my fault. Each of those memories was like an exposed nerve, and the screaming in my head was salt on those nerves. I'd wanted to wake up, but the feelings I dug into as I broadcasted weren't quite that. So yeah, she like taps into like very emotional, tough memories of hers. And then of course the Simurgh screams are salt on those nerves, which is just scary. But it's not working, right? Like she gives. I appreciate that she gives everyone a heads up before she used this. She says like, warning everyone, Aura, I'm going to be doing this, and it doesn't work. Like it works in that it gets Bloodplay to pause long enough to like be taken down, but I don't think she achieves the feeling she was going for.
Yeah, and now that we're being all paranoid, I can't help but read it as okay, the Simurgh basically orchestrated a situation where she can blast her whole team with the rawest, deepest feelings she has.
Yeah.
In a moment where they're already vulnerable. That can't be good for their states of mind.
No, like, I mean, like, it's nice that she warned them before it happened so they don't realize it's coming out of anywhere or out of nowhere. But, like, if I warn you before I throw a baseball at your face, like, you're still going to get hurt in the face when the baseball hits you.
It's true. Yes.
Like,
good point.
So, I appreciate the warning, but also this hurts me.
Yeah. Yep. Not great. Yeah. So the team quickly runs into the Heartbroken, or a couple of Heartbroken, plus Mapright, who gives everyone the power of maps.
Yay!
And Chastity and Rain flirt a little bit.
Yeah, they flirt over Rain being ignorant as to what Bloodplay means.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, folks? No shaming here or anything, but I think we're just gonna elect to continue to let everyone else be ignorant as to what Bloodplay means.
Yep, and we move on.
Yep.
Anyway, at this point, you know, everybody's very suspicious of Vicky. This is where she says she's an 8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Sveta just like absolutely freaks the fuck out here, right? Like she can't keep up. She doesn't understand what's happening. She's just seeing Victoria change rapidly. And it's perfect here. Your power's changed again. Your force field held your gun when you were nowhere near it. You just did something else. Your aura. And then Rain helps interpret flavors of rah-rah and fuck off in the fight earlier. Then just now it was a big slap in the face of holy shit, which is kind of like wake up.
Uh-huh.
Not quite.
Yeah, you could say it matches in terms of like holy shit, I just did that, or just
right.
But I mean, again, a feeling that nobody appreciates having, I guess.
No, certainly not. And this is the part where they finally drop Master Stranger protocols on her, because it's honestly the only way to make her listen.
Yeah.
And it works because Victoria is I don't want to say she's very by the book cape, but she is a cape that respects the concept of Master Stranger protocols a lot.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is this power she has is a master power.
Sure.
I mean, the aura always was a very weak, like very narrow and sort of on the scale of parahuman powers, easy to get around master power. But this is like a real master power. This is a, you know, if she practices with it, it could be a dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
To
her credit, she says the protocols overrode any sentiment or logic. That was how they worked, and she actually listens here. She does listen, which is good. But she's also like bleeding profusely, and like I don't know, like I think it hurts a little bit, but she doesn't seem as focused on the pain. Like I love the moment where she realizes it, because she's like, "Oh, I'm wet. Oh, that's a shit ton of blood."
It's like going down her back, and you know, later Riley is like, "You're bleeding like a lot," and that's, you know, it's Bonesaw saying that. So
yeah, well, I mean, like we see the wound on Byron is bleeding so profusely that like first Sveta wraps around it to give enough pressure, and she's like squeezing really hard to get enough pressure, and it's like bubbling up between the tendrils at first until she increases the pressure. So like I know it's not the exact same wound, but with a character like Bloodplay, their weapon causes a lot of bleeding, and she's not as concerned about it. She's just like, I have no idea how bad it is.
Yeah,
but
let's move on with the mission.
This all feels like Simurgh was scoring a win, and she hates that. She hates the idea that like they just scored their own win, and now suddenly it feels like this is Simurgh winning, and I'm not happy with it. Like even my teammate calling Master Stranger protocols on me feels like Simurgh is scoring a win there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. That's a good point. So apparently we learned that all of the captives are being dragged over to the Mathers Giant so that she can keep them incapacitated. And there's a lot of like kind of tactical back and forth in terms of who goes where. But basically, the upshot is that Victoria is sent to go with Chris and Byron because Byron and Victoria need medical care. And Byron is in charge because Chris is Chris. And because Victoria is doing too well.
Yeah, yeah.
And as they have this conversation, I love the little details like Chris here misremembering and saying that Victoria said she was a 9.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's really great. It's really great. I like Sveta's, "You will fucking go get medical care, Victoria. You're bleeding like shit," Sveta said with uncharacteristic harshness. It's perfect. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite moments in the chapter. Actually, just how unsveta that is, but how like not in a way where it like breaks you out of the frame. You're just like, wow, like she's doing really awfully right now.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, this is out of character and unrealistic. It's like, holy shit, this is how frustrated and scared Sveta is that she's driven to this uncharacteristic moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so the Chris moment of him misremembering Victoria as a 9. And I think the clever thing is here, because it's Chris and Byron that both misremember in different directions, I think we can't just wave it away as a character just forgot. Like they just forgot how she was doing. Like I think that starts to point more specifically to a specific kind of Simurgh screwiness. And so like that's a good way of making that clear. Like if it had been Byron both times or Chris both times, you could be like, oh, well, something's going on with him specifically. But because it's two different characters, now we're like, oh, this is some larger thing going on here.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it is also funny that Chris is calling her out on having too high of a number. When he was asked the first time, he's like, oh yeah, like an 8 or a 9. Right. I'm great. And even if I wasn't great, I have my bird form that makes me immune to this shit. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know if we pulled it out later, but the moment later on where she's like, Chris, like you always say we're not paranoid enough, but then we're like rightly paranoid about something you're doing, you get all pissy.
Yeah.
That's like a perfect example of that, actually.
Yeah. I do want to, before we move on from this moment, I want to talk about where they're taking blood play away and they can't carry all these people. So Victoria like tries to get her on their side by using an acceptance aura on her. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And she needs Chastity to come like finger slap her to knock her out. I like this because like, if you like a really metaphorical interpretation of this is that you can't make someone feel acceptance, right? Like even if you have powers, you can't make someone get to a point of acceptance. They have to get there by themselves. So of course the acceptance aura does not work the way you want it to. I like that.
That's just an emotion. That's not any kind of real resolution of the things that are happening inside you. So
right.
I mean, in fact, if that did work, then my estimation of her power would be way higher.
You're right. And then there's this beat when they're kind of heading up the stairs and they bump into a guy who's sitting on the stairs. He's sitting down, he's covering his ears and rocking back and forth. And I like this occurs right after Victoria notices that the scream is less loud and less noticeable here. And she makes the assumption she makes is, oh, the Simurgh's just further away from me now, so it's not hurting as much. But like this guy is like rocking back and forth and has his ears covered. And I don't know, like I don't want to read too much into this, but it's been established that the longer the Simurgh works on you, the less noticeable the scream is.
I don't like where you're going with this, Scott. I don't like this. You're gonna have to back up because I know where you're going with this.
Okay,
I know the direction you're going. I don't like it.
I'll stop then. I'll stop.
Yeah, I mean until it comes up again, and then definitely talk about it more.
Sure. But Victoria uses her aura on this guy again, right? This is another instance of her using her aura to attempt to soothe this guy, which I think is a nice usage. In that, like, she's trying to calm this guy down. She's trying to soothe this guy. He's obviously going through a rough time, and she's trying to make it better. That's very nice. But I don't know, like, it's just a trend of increased aura usage. And this line was really, it stuck out to me. In a way, I was glad that I could. The process of connecting to the Fragile One and her origins, realizing she wasn't the enemy and letting her connect to me. It had opened doors for both the shaping of my force field and for my emotional control. It felt right that the emotional control was letting me help and soothe now. Again, I don't want to be negative, Matt. I don't want to be, but like, we get the open doors imagery is back here again. Like like connecting to her and letting her connect to me. It felt right now. It felt right in this moment that I was getting to do this. Great. I'm happy for you. I'm so happy, but also I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Perfectly balanced yin yang of being terrified for her right now.
Yeah.
And super enthusiastic at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I that's the thing is I love it, but I'm so scared.
This is one of the, I mean, there's always an ebb and flow to like the tension and anxiety in this story. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to next week's chapter. Of course I am. But then there's weeks where I'm like, I would kill someone to see the next chapter. I need to know where this is going.
Sure.
So that's kind of closer to where I am right now.
So what do you think about this moment where she seems to be doing worse generally, though? Like outside of everything else, the worries we've had, like she's looking for the first aid kit and the red and white color scheme, the cross or the Red Cross, right? Swiss Cross, yeah. Makes her think of Amy, and the thought is she's out there. She's on edge, and that's just the Simurgh specifically. Like it was like a whisper formed out of environment, paralleling my thoughts, except there was no environment to it. An idea running through my head like I'd formed the thought, but like a teleporter arriving at a location, the process of getting from A to B wasn't apparent, only inferred. My thoughts felt like that. The fact that the journey could be made sense. It was just too fast, too disconnected to feel natural. So like that's her at least recognizing that the thoughts invading her mind right now are not necessarily coming from her, but they're working.
Yeah, I mean it's a bad sign because doesn't it sort of hint that the Simurgh has gotten deeper into her mind if it can just make thoughts pop into her stream of consciousness instead of having to like sort of manipulate her auditory centers and the environment and stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean people in the Discord they were reminding me of Cody being like he felt like he could hear the Simurgh screaming, had it always been there? Had it ever stopped?
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that absolutely is. I think you're right. It shows like maybe a deeper level of effect is going on here.
Yeah. So then Bonesaw Skypes in and is able to help them with their medical care, which is just super swell of her. Chris offers them some coagulant cream, which Victoria hesitates to take briefly, prompting Chris to throw a tantrum and storm off.
Yeah, but like, I don't think it's that she hesitates to take it. I think it like Chris's plan here is just that he grabs it and then like walks over to her to just put it on her.
Yeah,
and true. Victoria's like, oh, wait, hold on there, which is like, you don't do that to Victoria, especially if you're Chris.
Yeah.
But he is really agitated and super annoyed, and he like slams the cream down on the floor and walks off to sit back at the computer again. Again, it's really great to kind of try to infer what's going on in Chris's mind here. Like this goes back to the quote that you mentioned earlier. You talk about the importance of being wary, but the moment we wary around you for good reason, you get pissy. And that's because like, of course that is like, he's putting up this don't trust anyone front, but I think he wants people to like, he wants to be trusted. He wants to know that people trust him and like him. It's this almost contradiction that he lives in constantly.
And we pull out the quote and we'll probably talk about it later, but I think it's this huge moment when she leaves him and she says, trusting you. It's like a huge moment, right?
Yeah.
Like that she would say this to him.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah,
we'll
that might be the most important thing she's ever said to Chris.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. But so, what did you think about like Bonesaw shows up here, and she's like the extremely cheery, like almost worm version of Bonesaw that was kind of off-putting to me. I mean, maybe it's just that I think the text says something like she's really cheery compared to Byron, who is in a really bad place right now. So maybe it's just the comparison that makes her seem like, but like, I don't know. It very much channeled like Worm Riley to me. And I was like, oh, that made me even more sad.
It is bad. I mean, I see the Bonesaw traits as being kind of a response to fear and paranoia and self-protectiveness, which is, I think if she knows that like this horrible thing is about to happen one way or another, and she's going to be sucked into all this for good or ill, it's making her afraid, and this is her way of dealing with that. That's my model of her.
Yeah, I think think that seems reasonable to me. I it's still sad.
It
I
is.
mean, like I think we have to go back to the line. It was like I forget exactly what it was, but it's like I don't do that kind of thing anymore. And yet Victoria is here asking her to do that exact thing.
Yep.
Maybe I don't know what it is.
Yep. But Bonesaw's idea is to use Rottenfanger's music-based fuckery as part of her attack somehow.
Why do these books always end with someone singing and that singing doing things?
Well, sound is a good motif, I guess.
I'm just joking. I do think it is funny that like Canary was pretty pivotal to the end of Worm, and maybe this music-based stuff is going to be pretty pivotal to the end of this.
Except like the opposite of Canary, like some horrible sound that kills people. Oh God. Okay.
It's definitely not going to be that, right?
Yeah.
What was that noise?
That was me simultaneously agreeing and disagreeing, which is kind of the reaction that I have to like everything in this chapter. So, Victoria talks to Byron, and he says that he is at a 2, which is just about as bad as you can get. And it's because he keeps thinking that Tristan is back. He keeps like seeing motes of light or hearing things and thinking that it's Tristan. And you're just like, this sucks.
Yeah. Like every time his vision wavers or like anything happens, it's like, oh, Tristan's back. It's really awful. This quote Vicky gives to him, I think every single one of us feels like we're getting special attention. That's really perfect because that's what the Simurgh does, right? Like it has the ability, it has the capability of doing that, of making it feel like you are specifically being singled out to be fucked with. And the reality is, yes.
Yeah.
Like the Simurgh can set up dominoes in that way where it can ping off of every single person in this group and fuck them up specifically in the worst possible way.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if the direction we're going with this is like Breakthrough just goes like red, like I mean, because the Travelers were red. Like there's no other way to look at it, right? The Travelers were fully controlled Simurgh bombs, but like they didn't turn into like Echidna clone levels of being monstrously evil. They just operated along the parabolic arc that she set out for them.
Sure.
And so, I mean, it will be interesting to see how they would respond to that situation.
Yeah, that's true.
Like to learning that, because they got through the whole alignment fiasco successfully.
Yeah.
So there's clearly like some capacity in their team for dealing with these sorts of situations. So it's just a fun thought anyway. So
yeah, and I mean, like Byron is back too. Byron is putting like there is a lot of echoing between the goddess arc here, right? Like Byron was the only one that sniffed this stuff out, and he was put in charge because of it. Now Byron is put in charge here, but he's not doing as well this time because there's no Tristan around.
Yeah. There's no magic chocolate with drugs in it either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
No anti-Simurgh chocolate.
Yeah. So ultimately, Chris detects that the Mathers giant has gone dark, and he wants to go check on her. But
it's
Victoria,
like the worst possible thing that could happen.
it's literally, pretty much literally the worst. Yeah. Victoria insists that he stay and work on this, even using her aura to push him to do so.
Yeah, and I think this is, to me, and there's still got many more chapters in this arc, presumably, but to me, this feels like the moment we've been building to with this aura usage, right? Like we started off with these triumphant moments of like usage and desperation, and Victoria has slowly kind of ramped up how often she's using it, and it's usually been to help her teammate, to help soothe them, to help make them feel better, to give them courage and strength. And here, it is a moment of feral panic, the kind that made someone freeze instead of flying. Which has connotation there, right? Like instead of flying. So like you're torn between, oh, that's good, he's not going to fly but she uses this, she just lashes out with this like almost mastering level aura usage, right? Like she is getting him to do the thing that she wants to do through the use of her aura.
Yeah.
And it's, as we've said many times, it's troubling.
It's all been, there have been moments throughout the chapter where you're like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then there've been moments where you're like, I don't know. I mean, you're learning. You're still getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
But this is. I mean, what's the difference between this and if she had just like physically intimidated him and slapped him and been like, stay in the fucking chair, Chris?
Yeah.
Like you're like, fundamentally, what's the difference? Like, I don't think there is. It's an attack. It's a way of scaring him into submission.
Yeah. And it works, right?
It works, but I wonder, like, I suspect this is like exactly the thing the Simurgh wanted her to do to like push him.
That's my fear too.
Yeah.
Like that, all this overconfidence, this use of the aura, like all this has been building to this moment where he resists and she pushes him like this. And look, on the optimistic side of thing, maybe this is what pushes him to not not fly away. But I don't know if I'm not optimistic right now.
I'm not very optimistic. I will say that, I mean, she's the one to recommend that he use his anti-Simurgh bird form.
Yeah.
Which was surprising to me because I thought I like, even from the way the Simurgh sort of phrased that, I was like, yeah, this is a thing that occurs to him. And it's like Victoria, if anything, has been like, hey, you got that bird form, right? Mm-hmm. Use the bird form.
Yeah.
And now she, as she leaves, she says, trusting you. And then he just says, yeah. And you're like, okay, well, what do I do with that now that I'm so freaking paranoid?
Right. Like it's I'm torn on it because I'm with you that like Victoria is suggesting this bird form. It seems to me like we're getting to the point where it's no longer an option of, is this going to go the way Simurgh said it was going to go? It seems to me that it's just like with Contessa, just like with the judo, that everything's going to go exactly the way that Simurgh said it was going to go. And the important parts are going to come after that. The important parts are going to come after that thing. And I don't know what to do with that because at the same time, you were absolutely right that trusting you, I told him. Yeah, he said, his voice reedy, thin. This could be, as we said before, the most important thing she's ever said to him, bar none. Like that she's willing to extend this trust to him in this moment could be so important. But it could be too little too late. It could be it could be that his voice is thin because he's already made up his mind. This thought has already popped into his head, combined with her aura, combined with shooting up with the bird form. It could be him going forward with exactly what he was supposed to do. I don't know, and I love that we don't know. Like I think this is a cool like end of the chapter to be at because like we're right here, we're right, like every chapter I felt like we're bumping right up to the moment where I think, okay, this is going to be the chapter where I'm going to find out what happens to Chris, and then something else happens and it keeps going a little further. But I really think right now the next chapter is going to be the chapter where we find out what happens with Chris.
Well, what's funny is it's all gone according to her plan for the last four chapters, and yet I'm still on the edge of my seat.
Sure.
And even if it continues to do so, like the way in which things are evolving is so dramatic and interesting, and I mean fun in a kind of dark, fucked up way that I wouldn't mind even if it did just go. I mean, I don't. It's funny to say like we're so close. I feel like we're so close to the end, and I have no real idea of the direction this is going to end in, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you want to 8-dimensional chess it, the Simurgh going to the Mathers giant, knowing it would piss Chris off to get Chris to pull away from what he's doing and go, like, could be her plan. And maybe Victoria just countered that plan by making him stay and do the thing. Well, she's going to go deal with it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or maybe staying and leaving him alone and her going to deal with it was part of the plan all along. And when she comes back, he's going to be gone. Yeah. And Riley's going to be like, I don't know. He took off. What do we do now? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to find out, like, soon, but I don't know.
Right now?
Like right now? Like, yeah, like let's just wrap this up. Oh, no, just kidding. Yeah. So as we wrap up this chapter, Victoria does find the Mathers giant, and the Simurgh was there, silent, not screaming, wings and arms wrapped around the giant.
Yeah. So is she not screaming because she's actually not screaming, or is she not screaming because Victoria just can't hear the screams anymore? I mean,
I'm afraid that it's like possibly even worse than that, because the Mathers giant is the Mathers giant.
Yeah.
Meaning that like true. The most like her psychic powers make the Simurgh psychic powers look like child's play. Like she can just put shit in your head directly. So and we know the Simurgh can sort of borrow thinker powers. So I mean, bad is bad.
It's real bad.
Yeah. And that's the end of that chapter.
It's really real good pep talk there, Matt. I'm feeling pretty good about the world now.
Glad we talked all this out. And okay, good. So the discussion question from last week was, what character resolution are you most excited to see? What ending do you think would fit for them?
This is a great thing to pivot to because we're so optimistic about the ending now, huh?
Jesus. All right. First from Sarah Penguin, they say, while Parian made great progress on being more assertive in Worm, she still has a long way to go in her character arc. Her biggest issue is her unwillingness to be vulnerable. When she started dating Foil, it was with Foil as her right hand. Her time at Mistreats in Power Perversion tells her that she is also in control in other ways. She kept her powers' true use from Foil, leading to a rift between them. When if she had been open, they would be better. And if she covers every inch of, and she also covers every inch of her skin with costume, representing her wanting to hide herself. While Parian claims she is with the Undersiders for her family, that no longer feels true. The Worm epilogue made the problem seem to be a lack of surgeons, not a lack of money. Clearly, Trophy Wife needs to stop stealing their fingers. So either Parian wants to be a villain, or she is afraid that if she stops, then the relationship dynamic will change, and that scares her. Foil clearly is not happy being an Undersider and wants to go back to being a hero, but she needs to start communicating her needs. The best ending would be Parian opening up and Foil communicating her needs. Then Parian goes rogue while Foil joins a hero team, and they are happy and communicative. If Parian does like being a villain, then it might be better they break up and Parian gets herself a crime gal while Foil switches her rapier for a bat and joins Switch Hitter as an unstoppable batting duo with benefits. While I think they're adorable and want them to work out, either option is preferable to uncertainty and lack of closure with the current situation.
Cool. So yeah, Foil and Parian. I would agree with that. I'd like to see what's going to happen with them.
Me too. I suspect we'll get some kind of resolution.
Yeah. I don't know, Matt. The world's clearly going to end, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Dancing Anatolia, who says, perhaps not a resolution, but I really want more Mockument. His power and snippet of backstory instantly captivated me, and I just want more. Primarily, was the Jester dude in Arc 18 the original Mock coming out of hiding, or some sort of resurrection by ape Mockument using his power on himself again? I don't know, Dancing Anatolia, and I'm with you. And oddly enough, Mockument stayed behind, we were told in this week's chapters, that he is not with the rest of Death Chester. He's not there. Don't know where he is. Maybe he just went, nope, pass.
I mean, I still enjoy the idea that Mockument is actually
a Mockument.
Mockument. And that the original Mockument died, which may or may not be true, but I love that idea as it's just great. It's
so fun. And as not to completely contradict Dancing Anatolia here, but I love that question is just in the air and we might never know the answer to it. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, me too. Nugget Blaster 69 says, I'm really looking forward to seeing Contessa's resolution. I've always thought that she was one of the more tragic characters in Parahumans, albeit not an innocent one. She put everything she had into saving humanity and succeeded, since Taylor would have never defeated Scion without Doormaker and the Clairvoyant. But she had to do such horrible things to reach that outcome that she's left wondering whether the sacrifices she made and the sins she committed were worth it. So she tries to get out of the Cape scene altogether, only to be forced back in by Teacher. Ultimately, I hope that Rain's message and Taylor's final conversation with Contessa are able to get through to her and help her influence Titan Fortuna. But perhaps Fortuna has already taken over too much, and Contessa will be one of the most powerful beings in the world with no power over herself.
I hope not.
Yeah, that's one character where, I mean, one way or another, we're going to get a resolution.
Isn't there like a call with Contessa that we're waiting on? I seem to remember at the end of 20.2, she's like, okay, the call with Riley is going to happen soon, but we got a call with Contessa that'll be happening soon.
I'm having just a complete blank. I mean, I feel like I know what you're talking about, but it's not. It'll come to me in 10 minutes when the call's over. So
sure, of course. Up next, we have Seething, who says they're looking forward to Chris's, but for this answer, they choose Narwhal and Crystal Clear. I've had a back-of-the-head niggling feeling Narwhal would be one of the capes that goes Titan or otherwise snaps, since we saw her point of view in an interlude. So I was relieved to hear she's still in the game this chapter. Crystal Clear is here again, too. No reason to think he's going to factor in, except maybe thematically because of his powers. I just want to see him again because I like him. Yeah, I agree. Crystal Clear is one of those super early interludes that we saw a lot of in the early story, and he's just kind of been chilling.
Yeah. I mean, definitely based on his interlude placement, I assumed he would be a bigger character. Not that I'm like disappointed that he hasn't been, but he's
I think he worked for the parts of the story he was in.
For sure.
But then he just kind of faded to the background.
Yeah. Very interesting. Average Gamer 2900 says, I'm most looking forward to seeing Chris's arc. He is such a fascinating character. Throughout the book, we see him both develop and deteriorate over the course of the story, which is such an interesting element. As we see in the latest arc, Chris is a key in the story's finale, but because of the aforementioned development/deterioration, it makes the story's finale up in the air. My opinion is that no matter what, whether he turncoats or fucks over Simurgh, he will win, or at least he will get what he wants in some form or another.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. Chris is going to get what he wants. The question is, will what he want be good for everybody else?
I mean, I have a tragic suspicion that what he wants may end up with him being like dead and sacrificed himself for his team. But
yeah,
maybe.
That's super optimistic though, because that means like that's more optimistic than I was being, where I would just like, Chris gets what he wants, but what he wants is to fuck off and leave everyone to die. Hooray. He got what he wanted.
This is depressing.
All right. X Das Niveau says, apart from the breakthrough members of the main story, I'd like to know what happens to the Titans at the end. They make my transhumanism sense tingle like the S9000 clones in Worm or Dragon, and therefore are of special interest to me. Yeah, like, that is true, because, like, I mean, presumably whatever solution here that saves the world is going to make those guys go away. Because I don't think, like, is the resolution of this thing going to be like, we did it, we stopped the end of the cycle, and also these giant superpowered capes are just walking around.
Yep, they're just there. Yeah, that's an interesting idea or question, I guess. It's like a question I didn't really think about before.
Yeah,
so.
like the Ashen Titan that just like fucking destroys everything she walks through.
Yeah. SNES C says, I'm going to pull a surprise entry here and say that I really hope that we see Ratcatcher again before the story ends. Of course, there's the question of why she keeps her face covered all the time, but beyond that, I want her to get to a better place career and lifestyle wise. We last heard from Annalise that Foresight was going to give her another shot at joining since Teacher had a hand in botching her initial application, though he didn't have high hopes. It'd be really cool if Victoria spotted Foresight at some point and noted that Ratcatcher was among their ranks with a new costume signifying that she passed the interview. Yeah, that would be delightful.
We learned this week that Ratcatcher is a very popular character amongst the fandom. Not quite popular enough, but very popular character. Yeah, I think that's cool. I agree with SNES here. Seeing what Ratcatcher has gotten up to at the end of the story would be great.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next we have Sanity Planet, who says, I'm very curious about how the whole entity-humanity conflict in general will be ultimately resolved, but I'm most interested in seeing the Fragile One character's resolution, specifically her relationship with Victoria, both because their relationship is a metaphor for Victoria's path to recovery, and because I've become genuinely interested in Fragile One as her own character. Early in Ward, her shape was a physical reminder of Victoria's most traumatic days, and her lack of control and accidental violence was really just Glory Girl's flaws writ large. However, in line with Ward's theme of recovery, Fragile One and Victoria eventually come to terms and learn to work together. Most of this progress happens once Victoria accepts the parts of her past the Fragile One symbolizes and learns to see things from her perspective, as it were, when Victoria visits the Shard Realm. This goes on a little bit more, but I love that too. And I totally agree with the idea of like Fragile One was this perfect metaphor. Like we said it, I think, from the first arc when you and I realized what the wretch was, and we were just like, holy shit. And like, it's this perfect metaphor, and I've loved it since that very first arc. But yeah, seeing it become a character, like it is a character in our character poll, because Fragile One is a character, and Fragile One Fragile One's relationship with Victoria is one of the most important relationships of the story. And that's why I want to be positive about the opening of doors and the connecting and the melding of them two. Like, I want to be positive about that, but I still can't get over my worry about some of it as well.
Yeah, the positive possibilities, right? Because like, she's the only shard who we can really say is even remotely good. And if we take that away and say, nope, she's actually, it's all bad.
Yeah.
Then that's just kind of a downer. And I don't want that to be true.
And I don't think that's going to be true. As much as like the back of my mind is like, oh, open doors. I'm worried about these open doors. Like, I absolutely think it is totally in line with what the story is doing to say Victoria and Fragile One have reached this symbiosis, and that symbiosis is going to be key for the survival at the end of this book, whatever that means. That is undoubtedly going to be true. And I don't think suddenly it's going to reverse everything and go, haha, actually that door opening spells your doom, Victoria. Like, it just doesn't like gel. So I like cautiously optimistic, but I totally agree overall with Sanity Planet's opinion here that like this relationship is going to be key to the resolution of Victoria's arc. 100%.
I agree. Rid Tom talks about two different characters who have kind of a toxic relationship with Victoria. There's a mention of Amy, but actually he's going to talk about Damsel and Chris. Damsel, of course, a clone of Victoria's best friend, or potential romantic interest, if you will, shares a lot of similarities with Swansong, but is actually a horrible person. They use secrets that only Ashley would know to hurt Victoria. They mock her for being a survivor, and they mock her for hurting innocent people. Despite everyone besides Kinsey wanting to abandon her, Victoria still latches on and risks her own life for Damsel, which is a noble goal. But how much of that is Victoria simply protecting Damsel as the sister to Swansong, and how much is Victoria's desire to keep an aspect of Ashley around in the world? And then Chris, much like Ashley, is also a horrible person who used his relationship to hurt Victoria, but in a more sinister way. Victoria was never shy about not getting along with Chris, but she openly cared about him. The Fallen Raid was her complimenting his actions and freaking out about him getting hurt. And the arcs after are all her checking up on him out of concern for his living situation. Even after the reveal of his lab rat lineage, it's Victoria who denies Feta and Tristan's claim of him being a monster, saying they don't know his side of the story yet. She's very much keeping her role as his guardian, which makes it all the more poignant when Chris drops her in Amy's lap for use and gloats about it to her face. Victoria cannot understand why he would do such a thing, cannot fathom the justifications that he would twist to letting this happen to her, because all she wanted was to keep him safe. Arcs 19 and 20 exemplify this as she faces him and gets to experience more of his bizarre worldview in a non-aggressive setting, culminating in her not seeing him as a teammate anymore, but trusting him as someone who's upfront about what they want, even going so far as to give him the credit for part of her new plan to judo flip Fortuna.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, good complicated answer to the point where I actually have to like think about it now and can't just rattle off a thought in response.
I like, yeah, giving him the credit of the new judo flip. That I didn't catch on to that. I mean, we definitely noticed it, but I didn't really like let that sink in, that Victoria giving him partial credit for that is important, because like,
yeah,
their relationship has just been so contentious throughout so much of this book, and I think that was something we probably should have pulled out as like a symbol of her, not respect, because I don't know if she's ever going to respect him, but trust. I think trust is the right word there.
Yeah,
which we see pay off in this chapter.
Right. I love the line being drawn between Damsel and Chris, though, in terms of these people who are people who she like really recognizes as being actually bad, but she can't. She has this soft spot for them for different reasons. Yeah. It's very poignant.
And like, I think we're definitely going to get a resolution with Chris. I think there is this Damsel resolution, like drifting out there in the wind somewhere. I think that we're not quite done with her yet either. So
I think you're right. Yep.
All right, we have Smutchlets probably said that wrong, who says, this might not necessarily be the resolution I'm most excited to see, but I'm curious to see where Scribe is at the end of the day. Compared to a lot of characters we have seen growing and overcoming their past, Scribe has barely started to scratch the surface. I don't think we'll see a true resolution to Scribe's character, but if the themes of the story taught me anything, we might see the inklings of a new beginning. Hell, we may even see the new beginning in an epilogue centering around different Brockton Bay Cape's 18th birthday. Yeah, that would be cool. Given that she doesn't die, regress in behavior, or the whole genocide thing doesn't muck this up. Yeah, it's a big given. But yeah, I absolutely think like we've set up this 18th birthday, Missy's 18th birthday thing as this like pivotal after the world has not ended moment, and I think it would be very fitting and touching to have one of the epilogue moments be that.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll see Scribe there. Yeah,
that would be really nice. Yeah. Dianthus Amarensis writes a very long, very good post about Damsel. And the TLDR is Damsel. I think Swan Song comes back in some capacity because I'm a broken-hearted shipper. And I think the Simurgh will screw with Damsel. Also, quote-unquote, Swan Song is another word for last. And I always deliberately misinterpret things in the way that most confirms that thing that I want to happen will happen.
So like the arc title they're saying is literally going to be the Swan Song arc. She's going to come out of nowhere to save the day because it's the it's arc 20 Swan Song.
That's great. It's funny, as we were reading through these, I was trying to think of my answer, and like, I mean, obviously I agree with everyone's answers. I am probably most curious to see any given member of Breakthrough. I mean, literally all of them. I want to see all of the Breakthrough member, sort of including Damsel, because Swan Song's resolution is sort of bound up in her. And then I'm very curious about Brian because he's like fresh on my mind. And I'm also very curious to see like how Armstrong is going to do like in whatever the world looks like afterward. And then I also think it would be fun to see how like Presley's doing, just as an example of just like a normal average person. And
I totally agree. I think going back to Presley would be a great, very interesting thing to do. Like she has been that normie perspective for so long.
Yeah, which you could also say Natalie too, but Presley's even more normal. She's not wrapped up in this.
Natalie is like Presley is wrapped up into it as just the outside fan perspective, where Natalie has ingrained herself in the life, even if Victoria still refuses to let her on the team.
Yeah, every once in a while admits that she's on the team, right? Okay, next week's discussion question is: what was your favorite time that Wildbow asked you to read between the words?
Yeah, which you want to expand on that a little bit?
So what I mean is something complicated and subtextual that we were either intended to or able to figure out that was or was not, ever made textual. Mm-hmm. I think I'm willing to be pretty open-minded about the kinds of things people reply to with this. But there's tons of great parts in all of his stories, really, where there's so much to be read into it that isn't surface level. Even if you're enjoying the surface level of it, you can just go down a rabbit hole. So I'm kind of excited about this question just because I expect to get like wildly different answers because it's so open.
But anyway. I mean that's to me that is the most fun of the discussion questions, is to be as vague as fucking possible and then watch as people interpret it to their own whims. I enjoy that breeds discussion, which is the point of a discussion question. So yeah, take that question and go crazy with it. I hope you enjoy it. I kind of want to answer this one too, and I'm struggling to come up with an answer right now, so I'm gonna need to think about this.
Yeah, I had an answer in mind when I came up with the question, and then I forgot it. So that's
sweet. All right. You want to talk about March Madness now?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about round 1 of March's Madness. For those of you that somehow missed it, this is our 64 character tournament bracket based off of March Madness. I forgot this year to explain to people that this is based off of the NCAA college basketball tournament that happens every March. That's what this comes from, the bracket and everything I've created with this. That's what March Madness is. But March's Madness is our worm character matchups. And last week we had 32 matchups, our opening salvo. And first we're going to talk about some of the results of those, and then we're going to make our picks for round 2, Matt.
All right. Sounds good.
So overall, things weren't too crazy round one. All of our top 4 seeds in each bracket won, so we had no upsets in seeds 1 through 4 in each bracket. Those all won. We did have some very interesting matchups, though, that didn't go the way I thought. I think the biggest one to me is Harbinger versus Crystal. Harbinger 5 versus Crystal. Now, what would you have guessed? Who would win that one in your mind?
I mean, just Crystal off the cuff. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. But Jeff, the nice number boy, took that one. Jeff took it 52% to 48%. It was close, but Jeff took it. We only got one comment for this one by "You are now breathing manually," which now I'm breathing manually. Thanks. Said they say, "I'm at the point in my binge through where you are Byron chocolating Crystal. I'm voting for her just in case it pays off." That was a good choice. Unfortunately, you are now breathing manually.
Yep.
It didn't work out for you.
You were in the 48%. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. One of the other big ones is Candy versus Side Piece, and I actually listed Candy as a 5 seed. I think I listed some of the Heartbroken a little too high, Matt, because I think most of them fared okay. I think they all won, actually, but it was a lot closer than I thought it would be. I didn't think Candy versus Side Piece would be quite this close, but it was 53 to 47 in Candy's favor.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's... I guess I thought Candy would probably win. I am surprised that Side Piece got so close, though. Yeah, I mean, I guess these kind of big, larger-than-life characters, people like them. And I understand why. I absolutely do.
I understand why, too. She's very fun. We have Hero who says, "Hope y'all haven't forgotten that time when Side Piece screamed, 'You want a piece of me,' while literally eating pieces of herself." So that seems why Hero voted for them. I understand it now. I get it. But unfortunately, Side Piece lost.
Not happy about it, but I get it. Yeah.
Now the most important matchup of the week, surprisingly, Love Lost versus Ratcatcher.
Yeah, so this one people got very excited about.
Very excited.
There was some fan art about this matchup. More than one piece of fan art. I think like 3 pieces of fan art potentially.
Yep.
And actually maybe 4. But yeah, it's extremely close match.
Yeah. Unfortunately for all the Ratcatcher fans out there, Love Lost took it 54 to 46% of the vote. It was a good fight, Ratcatcher, but you went down. And these comments are very good. We have Nocturne, who I think was like the campaign head of the Ratcatcher lobby, who said, "Come on, friends, this is the year of the rat. Let her have a chance." And then we have Steve, who says, "When the Jade Emperor challenged the animals to race to the Heavenly Gate, the first to arrive was not the strongest of animals, not the fastest of animals, not even the swift flying dragon, but the clever rat. In dead last was Pig. Rat girl greater than Cop girl."
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's really good.
Oh, okay.
And then we have Eddie Axis, who says, who would let a puny rat win for just... I can't read this.
Sorry.
Who would let a puny rat win for the justice-bringing Love Lost, who fell so far in love with justice that she became the very thing she was trying to bring to justice? I honestly don't know which way that person voted, but it was great.
I'm going to go with Love Lost on that one.
Yeah. So another big surprising matchup was Amy versus Dot, Matt. I put Dot as the 7 seed because I figured the hatred of Amy would knock her out in the first round, but it didn't. Yeah. I was surprised.
Yeah, I'm confused, shocked, surprised, any of these words.
You went for Dot, right?
I went for Dot, yeah. I mean, Amy's a great character, but like at this point, you can't vote for Amy.
Yeah, but okay, counterpoint. Amy's a great character.
I mean, she's a totally great character. And that's actually how I did most of my voting, was not would I like to hang out with this person, but like, is this a great fictional character? But I mean, it's Amy, so
Sure. Bears Will Eat You voted for Amy and says, Dot's great and now much more likable, but Amy is fascinating in an oh god, I can't look away from the burning wreckage sort of way. Ward wouldn't be what it is without her, so I've got to give her my vote.
Well, that's for sure. And she's going up against Imp in the next bracket, so I'm sure that she'll just do great.
I think you can be pretty confident in no more Amy.
I think you're right.
Another matchup that I thought was going to be closer was Gilpatrick versus Armstrong. This is like our battle of the normie all-stars here. And it was not as close as I thought it was going to be. Gilpatrick took it 61 to 39%. Sorry, Armstrong.
Oh,
I think that is what we call recency bias. Gilpatrick just had a couple... Like, I voted for Gilpatrick, and I'm admitting it's recency bias.
Fair.
He just had his pair of interludes. They were great. I really liked him. Armstrong's interlude was a little bit ago, and so it's not as fresh in people's minds. So when they're thinking about who's the better of these two dudes, they voted for Gilpatrick, who is not a normie anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely... Gilpatrick's interludes were fantastic. So
to show you how difficult this was for some people, one of the comments on here is, Scott, you monster.
I mean, just to give full props, some of these matchups were just brilliant. I don't know if everyone read I don't know if everyone's reading the like names of the matchups that Scott gives them, but they're great. Read those.
They're increasingly harder to do. I don't know what I've done to myself. Like, I was like, oh, the first week will be the hardest, and then it'll go down in half each time. And then Sunday I was like, fuck, I can't come up with any of these.
What do these characters have to do with each other? Although now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, that's a great connection. Oh, that's a great connection. That's a really good connection. So apparently you still got it, man.
It's hard. It's very hard. The other matchup that was a little surprising was Moose versus Moonsong, or Moo, as I called them. Moose took that one. I guess, like, I loved Moonsong, and I think on my list of what characters I want to see the resolution of, I'm looking forward to seeing Moonsong in an epilogue somewhere. But I guess Moose is just, people love that Moose. I can't blame him. Him.
Yeah, he's great. He's tragic.
Last one, and I'm not even going to read any comments because we got to move on, but Natalie, our poor girl, got stopped. I think I rated Natalie a 6 seed. I really thought people liked Natalie more. I guess it's just me. I guess I really like Natalie. Me and 32% of the Parahumans fandom really like Natalie, but everyone else really enjoys Fumehood.
Yeah, Fumehood's pretty great. They're both great. That's the problem. That's always the problem. Wildbow creates great characters.
Yeah,
just in general. Can we just remark on how amazing it is that there's all these goddamn characters and everybody has such strong feelings about like all of these matchups?
Yeah, and I didn't even pick them all. There's 64 here, and it's not even all of them.
Yeah,
and I left some out and felt bad about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is.
It's crazy. Before we stop, the worst losers of this entire tournament is Shortcut, who only got 4% of the vote versus Swan Song. I think it was literally like 40 people. It was not very much at all. Poor Mark Dallin, who went up against a 5-seed Vista. I think all the really bad matchups were against 1 seeds, except for poor Mark, who went up against a 5-seed and got stomped. Only won 5% of the vote there. Poor Mark. Poor Mark.
Crushed.
Eric got 9%, so we've correctly determined the level of trolling in the worm community. It's at about 9% of the community. There we go.
That's just useful piece of information for you to know if you get some downvotes. You're like, well, 9% of people are crazy. So
there you go. If anyone ever downvotes you guys on the subreddit, now you know.
Yeah.
It's the people that like Eric.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. All right, so that is round 1, and let's move on to round 2. And let's do this pretty quickly, Matt. Let's just go down. We only got 16 matchups this week, 4 from each bracket, so let's just go down them real quick and see what we got. In the Aleph bracket, we have our number 1 overall seed, Rain O'Fire Frazier, against Love Lost.
Yeah, Mole Madness is this bracket. Are we voting right now?
Yeah.
All right, I'm voting for Rain.
I am voting for Rain as well. I love Love Lost. She's one of my favorite characters. Her journey in this book has been remarkable and wonderful, and like someone said about Amy, the book wouldn't be the same without Love Lost. But Rain is Rain.
Yep, that's 100% true.
Yep.
Next one, A Problem with Heights. You got Aiden Tate Chicken Little versus Dauntless the Kronos Titan.
See, because he's tall and Chicken Little has a fear of heights.
I gotcha.
Did you get it? Do you get it?
I do. And also he should have put the power into his goddamn boots. I'm actually going to vote for Dauntless in this one.
Wow. Really? Why?
Look, personal reasons, because his interlude just like destroyed me. It was very powerful for me specifically.
Yeah. So. I mean, fair. Totally fair. And Dauntless is coming fresh off of knocking the Simurgh. This was one of the upsets. The Simurgh was a 7 seed. Dauntless was a 10 seed. And Dauntless knocked her out of the tournament. It's a big deal. But I got to go for my boy Chicken. My boy Chicken Little.
All right.
He's too pure for this world.
Thanks
for vote against him.
Canceling me out.
All right. Next up, we have the Chocolate War. This is Byron Vera versus Candy. So our Capricorn Blue versus our Heartbroken. Matt, who are you going for here?
I'm going to go with Byron. I mean, I'm going to have a hard time voting against Breakthrough. I think they're all such fantastic characters that unless it's Breakthrough versus Breakthrough, I'm just probably going to end up voting for Breakthrough every time.
Yeah, and I tried to arrange the bracket so those would happen very late, the Breakthrough versus Breakthrough matchups. So
yeah, that's good.
So you're not going to have to do that for a bit.
Okay.
I am also going to vote for Byron. I love the Capricorn brothers. I just love them, which leads perfectly into the next round, Matt.
Leaders of the pack. Tristan Vera, Capricorn Red versus Rachel Lint, Bitch. I mean, if we're going based on Ward, which is how I'm taking this, I'm still going to have to go with Tristan.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bitch is one of my absolute favorite characters from Worm. Love her to death. But this is a poll about the characters in Ward, and I'm not saying Rachel hasn't been a wonderful character, but she hasn't been in it enough to go up against Tristan, who Tristan is a very divisive character to a lot of people, and I get that. I loved him from the beginning, and I loved every moment of his story, even as it ended tragically. So I got to vote for him.
Yep, I agree.
All right, that is it for Aleph. Let's move on to Bet. And what's the first one here, Matt?
Proof Positive. Lisa Wilborn Tattletale versus Harbinger 5, Jeff the Nice Number Boy.
Yeah, this is our upset boy, Jeff, here up against number 1 seed in the bracket.
It hurts me to vote against Harbinger 5. I just think he's so fun. I think the Harbinger boys are so fun. But I mean, there's a reason Lisa won last time. She's great.
Yeah, I
have to vote for her again. I'm being very predictable and sort of like mainstream with my votes, I feel, but
she didn't win last time though. Taylor won.
Well, she got real close.
Yes, true. You know what? I'm gonna vote for Jeff. I'm doing it. I was gonna go with you, but I'm tired of Tattletale winning all these polls. She's great. I love her. I'm tired of her winning all the time. It's Jeff time.
Well, now I feel bad. I should have voted for Jeff. Oh well, too late.
It's too late.
Yep.
All right, next up we have Barrel Cam, which is one of my not as great ones here.
Oh my god. This is it's just awful. I love it.
So we have our number 2 seed, Kenzie Martin, Lookout, up against Sean Gilpatrick. What are you doing here, Matt?
Gilpatrick's interlude was fantastic. I loved it. I still can't vote against a Breakthrough character, particularly Kenzie, who had one of the most interesting and emotional arcs of the story.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I love Gilpatrick. I cannot. I think there's not too many characters I would vote for above Gilpatrick, but one of them happens to be Kenzie, and therefore that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, what's the next one?
Tight Friends, Sveta versus Darlene.
Where are you gonna vote?
That's a tough one because, like, I love Sveta. I love Darlene a disproportionate amount though. Oh man. What do you think? You go first. You're making me go first every time. It's nerve-wracking.
I'm sorry. I am voting for Sveta. I love that girl so much. I love her. And Darlene is great. She's cool. She's been really interesting in this book, but Sveta, man.
Yeah. Sveta's great. We'll go with Sveta. Sorry. Right. I'm not even going to cancel you out.
All right. Up next, we have Bending Notes, which I think is the most difficult matchup this week. It is our number 4 seed, Bella, against our number 5 seed, Missy. So Finale versus Vista here. Gosh, I don't even know what I'm going to do right now. I'm hovering over radio button. I voted for Vista.
Yeah, I'm voting for Vista too. I think I mean, maybe I'm a little bit worm biased, but like the fact that we have seen this like very interesting growth for this character. And I like our hearts were all broken when she was dead briefly. I don't think we would have been that bent out of shape if it had been Bella. I'm sorry. I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right.
All right,
but
next.
you're going to get a lot of hate for that.
I know.
You're going to get a lot of finale fans who are very mad at you.
Yeah, I know. I
ready.
deserve it.
That inbox is just going to blow up.
I know. I'm waiting for it. I'm
just going to be
waiting.
a bunch of people going, bam, boom.
Yeah. Bam, bam, bam. Right.
Yep. All right, we're moving on to the Gimmel bracket, and our first match is Crushing on Rain.
Victoria versus Chastity.
Easy decision for me. Chastity's cool, like her power, but Victoria is Victoria.
Victoria's Victoria. Yeah. I agree. Next match, third wheel, Dragon and Defiant versus Moose.
You know, I don't want Dragon and Defiant to go that far in this tournament because I like them, but there's so many more interesting, more present characters. But I don't want to vote for Moose over them. So
recency bias is a tough thing with a story this long because like it's been a million trillion years since we really got what's going on with Moose, and Dragon and Defiant have been in it very recently.
True.
So it's very tempting to vote for them too. I think I am going to go with Moose this time.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think that what was being done with his character was very kind of fresh and interesting and unique from the kinds of characters that we get typically. So yeah, I like him.
Yeah. I am here's where I'm at. I'm fine with Dragon and Defiant going to the Sweet 16 and their run ending there. So I haven't looked yet who they'd be up against, but I'm fine letting them go on and then saying, no, you're done. I'm pulling you away. So I'm voting for them.
Okay.
Cool.
Next one, Deep Cuts, Chris Cryptid versus Flechette.
Chris, easy.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters of all time.
Yep,
so
100%.
That's easy. Yeah.
The last matchup in Gimmel, a matchup name which I think is not giving enough credit because I've gone 5 layers deep here, is Venus de Asshole. Which is Carrie/Carrie-added up against Fume Hood. See, the Venus de Milo is a statue like a Carrie-added.
I gotcha. No, no.
But it's holding an apple. So, and Fume Hood has the tattoo.
Well, I'm way ahead of you, buddy.
Okay, great.
Why are you doing this to me? I think
I don't know.
I think you need to vote first on this one because this is your fault.
Well, that's not fair. Fuck. I don't know.
I think Fume Hood's interlude is one of the most powerful parts of the story for me. What's unfortunate is that it was partially because it was inextricably bound up with Carrie-added's interlude.
Yeah. So you're saying that Carrie-added's interlude was not powerful, is what you're saying?
No. I mean, that's why. The reason both of these were so good is because they were tied into each other. I think that I'm gonna have to go with Fume Hood.
I think my greatest mistake in the seeding of this poll is seeding Fume Hood so low. I seeded her at 12. I think she's the lowest seed still in it at 12. Yeah, that's true. And that was clearly a mistake. She's a much more popular character than that. So she should have been much higher seeded. Voting against the major malfunctions feels so wrong, but I did it once already. So
it's true.
I've ripped off that Band-Aid and I'm voting for Fume Hood. Fuck. I feel terrible.
Yep. All
right, let's move on to the final bracket.
Okay. Let's do this. First matchup is Living with Yourself. Ashley Swansong versus Ashley Damsel. Oh man. Well, I mean Swansong.
I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't do this on purpose because I did.
I mean, you did it on purpose in the sense that you sort of set it up, but it is pretty funny that it actually worked out that way. So
yes, Ashley's the right answer here, and I'm sure Damsel has this whole thing as you're just if you could, you'd replace me with her. And by this vote, I say, yup.
Excellent. I guess we're on a theme of sisterhood because now we have Imp versus Amy, the Red Queen. Oh, this is a tough one, Scott.
It's beloved sisters.
Really,
get it? Because it's a little tongue in cheek.
I get it.
Yeah.
I already voted while you were talking, and I voted for Imp.
I mean, you could have voted for Amy, right? Just kidding. Up next, we have a wretched choice, which is Waste versus Contessa. Man, I've never loved Contessa. Like, she serves her role in the story, but I don't think I've ever voted for Contessa in one of these polls. So I'm voting for Fragile One.
I kind of have to agree, like just for the novelty of having this sort of alien, interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yep. All right, the last matchup, Matt. What is it?
Cat-like reflexes. Furcate versus Withdrawal.
Am I going to go 0 for 3 on voting for my major malfunctions?
I think you're going to have to.
Who I love to death. I love them to death, but I think Withdrawal is my least favorite of the major malfunctions, and
Really?
I've already voted against the other two.
Well, what's funny is I think he's my favorite of the major malfunctions, but I still think I like.
And you're still gonna kill him?
I still think This is maybe the toughest for me though.
I gotta vote for Furcate. I'm sorry. I got to. Well, hold on. Hold on. I might be changing my mind here.
Tell you what, Scott, I'll agree to cancel out your vote on this one.
Okay. And so that's all we'll say.
Yeah.
I don't even have to go on record. And I'll just say whatever it is, Matt's going to do the opposite of it, so it doesn't matter.
There you go.
We did it.
Because I'm like exactly 50% split on this one.
So I'm just going to message you privately and who I'm voting, and we're not going to have to say, okay, cool, done.
All right.
Click.
Yeah, and no one will ever find out, and you and I'm sure we'll forget within like 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll never. Yeah.
So that's going to be real frustrating for everyone. All right.
Well, that's it. That's round 2.
Yeah.
So the voting for this round will end this Sunday. So if you probably should have just voted along with us. That would be the easiest thing to do if you haven't voted already. I see by the numbers many people have. Matt, we've had 1,200 people participate in this poll, which is incredible. It's great participation. I love that. Thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. Hopefully you don't take it too seriously. It's just supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's great. So we will have our Sweet 16. Next week, we will talk about the winners of round 2, and we will pick our Sweet 16 choices. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
That's all we've got for you this week on We've Got Ward. You guys are all part of this show, so feel free to provide us with advice, questions, or thoughts on this week's reading.
You can reach out to us via email at gotwormpod@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at gotwormpod. I was sick this Sunday, so I did not do a live read of these 2 chapters. I'm sorry about that, but I'm all better now. So next week, 2 more chapters, gonna tweet them.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're feeling better.
Yes.
If you're not already subscribed to We've Got Ward, we recommend you do so you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else in the world that you can listen to podcasts.
And as always, you can find this on all of our shows over at our website, www.doofmedia.com. That's where you can find the now concluded podcast, Deep Impact. It's done. Well, it's not quite done. They've got some stuff coming out. I think they have their epilogue episode to publish, but it's just about done. So if you've been wanting to read Pact, that show's done now, so you can read it and follow along with them. Their episodes are much shorter than ours, so it'll be less time. Hooray!
Yeah, and a fun thing you can do is if you've read Pact, then just like you can skip around and check out the episodes that correspond to the chapters that you really enjoyed, and just get a taste of the show and maybe start out there. And if you dig it, then you can binge it like any sane person would do.
I can't believe you just gave him the option to skip around. What is wrong with you?
Well, it's you give them what do they say about drugs? The first one is free or some shit like that.
So you're a pusher, is what you're saying.
I'm just trying to get him hooked.
Pusher.
Yeah, you give them the good stuff.
Wow.
Anyway, if you like any of these illicit substance shows that we're trying to push on you, consider giving us money for those things. Via patreon.com/doofmedia. Supporting us on Patreon at the $20 level per month gets you the power to force us to watch a movie or a short story of your choice and do an episode about it on our podcast, The Doofcast. It, as well as every other level, gives you the ability to vote in the quarterly fan art and costume contests and to participate in the excellent Discord chat. And of course, make sure you head on over to patreon.com/Wildbow and donate to Wildbow while you're at it, because this is his world. We're just playing in it. This week, we have special thanks to a whole mess of new patrons. Bedoofs, M. Rosie, Kush J, Nathan Awake, Matthew R, Katie W, Andrew M, Shrey, new Doof Dancer, Daniel T, new Doof Trooper, Rebecca B, and new Doof Warrior, D-Dev. Wow.
Yeah,
that's
guys.
Great.
Holy crap. I think a lot of this is a result of the All Packed Up live stream. And if so, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed that content very much. Ruben, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, Ruben and Elliot knocked it out of the park, raised $5,200 or something like that. Yeah, you gave so much, and some of you even became patrons of ours, which is kind of even more nice. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we're wrapping up right now. So, if you need 24 hours more content, just go over there.
Yeah, whole 24 hours.
And just do that, yeah.
I don't know how much of it you watched, Matt, but there's some parts where those guys are getting goofy as shit, and that's real funny. The Packed the Musical is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
I haven't watched all of it yet. I'm sort of gonna spread it out for myself.
Packed the Musical.
I have not watched
it. Prioritize it.
Okay, I have not watched Packed the Musical yet. I mean, we did some role playing with them. That's what we did.
Yes, so we did.
That was really fun. Obviously,
you met Kent Sullivan, Boy Reporter, which was my wonderful character.
And Rupert Beaumont.
Had a fun time playing that. Anyway, if you cannot afford to donate right now, that is absolutely okay. That's fine, guys. You can instead help us out by sharing this podcast, sharing Deep Impact, sharing any of the other shows on our channel, sharing our website in general. Or you can head on over to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher and leave us a rating and a review. As we always say, every single review, even this late in the show, does help new people find us. If they see like 1,000 reviews next to a podcast and it's still 5 stars, they're like, holy crap, this must be the best podcast ever.
Yeah.
And yes, it is.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, right? It is true.
I mean, yeah. I don't think we still have 5 stars, but close enough.
I think it's close enough that the human eye can't tell the difference.
Indeed.
Well, that's all we have for you this week. Next week, we will hit you up with some more of Arc 20 Last.
Is Chris gonna do the thing? Are we gonna find out what genocide means? So many questions.
Jesus, I hope so.